Year 2225. Earth is essentially a giant sandbox and not the fun kind. 70% of the globe has degraded into a total wasteland. Real food? Forget about it. Even China, equipped with their legendary farming prowess, can only supply each citizen with 50 meager grams of vegetables a week. 50 grams. That translates to 2 depressing lettuce leaves. So here I am, Lin Tiao, squeezing what looks suspiciously like a tube of toothpaste straight down my gullet. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all condensed into one thoroughly unappetizing nutrient paste. Imagine if melted plastic had an illegitimate child with expired pudding. I've been choking this garbage down for 5 years, and my stomach still stages a full-scale revolt every single time. Other transmigrators get reincarnated as royalty, quadrillionaires, or at the very least some pathetic young master with an overpowered grandfather chilling inside a magic ring. Me? I got zapped into this hellscape because I spilled craft beer on my mechanical keyboard. Back in my previous life as a burnout programmer. Now I literally drool like a rabid dog the second the cafeteria monitors flash. The magical words, cabbage day. I am quite literally Pavlov's dog, but for leafy greens. My ancestors are doing backflips in their graves. The only inheritance my original body owner passed down to me is a stick-thin noodle physique, some loose pocket change, and several terabytes of strictly educational archives. Immaculately organized, museum-tier collections, and yet completely useless when it comes to surviving a dystopia. Then again, in a world utterly devoid of any entertainment, a man's gotta conduct his rigorous academic research. Right in the dead center of my deeply critical studies, boom, a deafening robotic broadcast reverberates, straight inside the skull of every single human on Earth. Global resources have dropped below 10%. System reboot initiated. Welcome to the war continent. Every nation will be assigned one random champion to fight for survival in a parallel realm. Fail and die 3 times, and your entire country gets wiped off the global grid. Physically deleted. Absolute zero. Gone in a puff of smoke. Blinding pillars of light instantly erupt everywhere. America lucked out with an elite Green Beret captain, and their streets are already popping champagne, as if they just took the Super Bowl. Russia rolled a ruthless colonel dubbed the Violent Bear, and vodka bottles are flying. Japan dispatched a legendary swordmaster, and India brought a mystic yoga monk to the table. Every single nation rolled out absolute powerhouses, and then all eyes locked onto the Chinese flag, waiting to see who we drew. I clasped my hands together and prayed, harder than I've ever prayed in 2 lifetimes. Please give us a super soldier. Please give us an agriculture prodigy. Please give us literally anyone. Any competent soul. 14 billion Chinese hearts stopped cold. Simultaneously as the screen flashed my name. China's designated champion Lin Tian.
Occupation unemployé.
Recent college grad, yeah. That thud you just heard. That was our entire population. Face-planting straight into their desks at once. The internet blew up faster than my old gaming rig. People were sobbing and screaming, frantically trying to book one-way tickets out of the country. Someone deadass asked if I was planning to defeat monsters by submitting a cover letter online. Fair point, honestly. Meanwhile, I'm standing here blinking like a total NPC, because 1 second I was grinding research at my desk, and the next, boom, I'm dropped on a hillside swallowed by towering ancient trees. And the air, bro, the air. It was unreal, actually. Crisp like inhaling liquid sugar. After spending 5 years breathing urban smog and depression, I nearly passed out from the absolute luxury of oxygen. Then the system drops the lore on me. 200 dead planets, 23,000 contestants. It's a brutal free-for-all. Here's some starter wood and rations. Good luck, try not to perish. Oh, and there are native locals running around, who'd love to punt my head like a soccer ball. Fantastic. Top-tier motivation, 5 stars. Then I look down at my wrist to find a sleek sci-fi smartwatch. Neat right up until I read the display. Live broadcast active. Current viewers 1.4 billion. 1,400 million people watching my pathetic life right now. My brain straight up blue-screened. So I did what any rational person would do. Staring down a high-stakes survival deathmatch. I waved awkwardly at the floating camera, and immediately begged everyone to please buy my crypto. For the love of all that is holy, do not open that folder called Study Materials. On my D drive, that's strictly academic research. Super important. So hands off my computer. The chat went absolutely nuclear. Apparently, my survival priorities are comedy gold to everyone. After securing what actually mattered, I took a deep breath and started scouting. The soil here was dark and rich, and my inner farmer was totally tingling. Great sun, solid temperature, total spring vibes, years of playing. Civilization and Age of Empires were about to pay off. Hopefully, maybe, please? I picked southeast and started trekking. Every step crunched softly on the mossy ground. The forest was dense, mysterious, and probably crawling with things wanting to eat me. What I totally missed was the faint green glow flickering in the dirt right where I'd been standing. Plus, my town heart was still sitting in my inventory, waiting patiently for me to stop being a complete idiot and actually use it. Back on Earth, the big bosses were having a total meltdown. Picture this, a top-secret underground bunker. So much cigarette smoke. You could use it as a professional fog machine. And a dozen of the most powerful old men in China, all staring at a giant holographic screen, showing me stumbling through a forest, like a hammered tourist. Real inspiring stuff. Then the Grand Elder dropped the bomb. They only get to call me once a week. 5 minutes and that's it. 5 measly minutes to save an entire civilization. On top of that, they're launching an official broadcast channel, complete with expert commentators, a weapons historian, a military strategist, and a hype host to keep things entertaining. Basically, they're turning my survival nightmare into a reality talk show. Awesome. Meanwhile, everyone online was losing their absolute minds, watching other countries' players, absolutely crushing it. Russia's violent bear of a colonel had already locked down his town center on a pristine hilltop, and some desert nation's guy spawned right next to a river, overflowing with resources, and me still wandering through the woods, like a lost puppy with asthma. My lungs were burning alive. My legs felt like concrete blocks welded to the dirt. Every breath sounded like a dying accordion. I cursed the original owner of this body. With every single step, dude must have considered walking to the fridge. His extreme cardio workout. Freaky animal noises echoed from the shadows, deep in the brush, and every sudden snap made my soul violently try to leave my body. I gotta find shelter before nightfall, or I'm officially going to be midnight snacks. I kept pushing forward, sprinting through every survival hack I'd ever absorbed from movies, video games, and random YouTube tutorials. Near water but not a sitting duck. High ground, natural barriers easy to defend. Literally shopping for prime real estate in hell. After what felt like 10,000 years of hellish hiking. Right when I was ready to pass out and chew out this body's previous tenant. In the afterlife about his terrible lifestyle, I busted through one final wall of thick vines, and my jaw completely dropped a valley. A massive, breathtaking, absolute masterpiece of a valley. Towering mountains flanking both sides, acting like impenetrable fortress walls. A crystal clear river slicing straight down the middle, around 30 feet wide and along both banks. Nearly a kilometer of pristine flatland, with soil so rich and dark, it was practically begging me to throw seeds at it. Bro, this is the ultimate jackpot of all jackpots. I could have cried actual tears of joy. Fresh water, fertile farmland, built-in defenses. It was like the universe accidentally handed me cheat codes, without a second thought. Not even a split second wasted. Time to drop this town center right here, right now. The town heart shot straight out of my inventory, hovered over the lush grass and started pulsing, projecting a glowing holographic blueprint in midair. And that is precisely when everything went sideways. The town heart was doing its magic routine, glowing bright and building away. Out of nowhere, the system starts throwing error codes left and right, spazzing out like a glitchy Windows machine from back in 2003. Critical warning. Unknown energy signature. Rule conflict detected, and then boom, major plot twist. It actually found something ridiculously unique baked into my soul. Turns out flatlining because you spilled beer all over your keyboard somehow unlocks hidden achievements. A brand new prompt flashes on screen. Do you want to integrate with the Age of Empires management system? Age of Empires? My absolute go-to game, the last thing I played before biting the dust. The universe was finally throwing a brother a bone. Hell yes. Merge right now before the devs change their minds. The sync finishes in a matter of seconds. 100% complete, locked and loaded. And right after, the system straight up says goodbye and bails. ghosting me faster than a one-night stand slipping out before sunrise. Yo, hello. System daddy? Where's my introductory tutorial? Where's my starter pack? Where do I talk to customer support? I stood there screaming bloody murder at the sky for 3 solid minutes, until my vocal cords were practically charbroiled. Every other transmigrator gets a ride-or-die system that sticks around forever, but mine dumped me after 60 seconds flat. Talk about toxic deadbeat boyfriend energy. Though the second I spun around, my rage instantly evaporated. There was an actual compound, sitting right where an empty field used to be. A legit, old-school brick fortress, featuring curved roofs right dead center. 2 cozy thatched huts parked on the left, and a chunky round warehouse on the right, all locked down by a wooden perimeter fence, spanning roughly 20,000 square meters. Alright, so it's no royal palace, but it sure beats sleeping in a random ditch waiting to get eaten alive. Stepping inside the main hall, I spot a sleek black stone tablet humming with holographic data. Base stats: Level 1 Town Center. Population: 1. Yep, just yours truly. Active combat units: 0. Resources: a pathetic 100 food. And 100 wood. The build menu is right there: 2 farms, houses, a lumber camp, and 1 killer specialty option. An authentic Age of Empires barracks. So the system actually left me a parting gift before ghosting. Kinda like finding a crisp $20 bill in your winter coat. Right after getting dumped. Though check out these prices. It's total highway robbery. Everything costs an arm and a leg. And I'm rolling with pocket change. Not even a stray dog to keep me company. Time to strategize. I dropped 80 food to recruit 4 farmers. 4 pillars of blinding light slammed the ground and boom. 4 rookie recruits in ragged gear materialized. Grip-locking axes and hoes. They instantly dropped to one knee and bellowed. We live and die for you, my lord. Cringe factor maxed out but majorly cool. I tried to play it cool and collected. Boys, please stand up. And maybe dial back the lung capacity next time. I pulled up their stats on the system tablet. Lin 1 and Lin 4 came with a gathering buff. Lin 2 was a certified farming prodigy, and Lin 3, oh baby, a C-rank talent packing combat potential. That is my future frontline tank right there. Time to flex my boss status. I dispatched Lin 1 and Lin 4 to forage for berries, mushrooms, and starter wood by the fence line. Lin 2 was literally glowing with hype when I told him to scout the prime soil and break ground on our first farm. Dude was built for this. And Lin 3, my heavyweight hitter, drew the most critical assignment of all, shadowing me and making damn sure nothing turns me into a snack. He stared right into my soul and promised, nothing lays a finger on you unless I'm flatlining first. My lord, a bit overdramatic, but honestly exactly what my anxiety ordered. So here I am, day 1. 1 courtyard housing 4 farmer brothers. Absolute zero idea what I'm doing. And a whole audience watching me bungle my way through it. My glorious trajectory as an Ice Sky Lord has officially clumsy style. Hilariously kicked off. I set everyone to work. And finally felt like a real commander. For about 5 minutes. Took Lin 3 on a guided tour of my sprawling empire. 20,000 square meters of pure weeds. Overgrown bushes and dirt. 3 full football fields of absolute emptiness. Truly living the dream. The river, though absolute chef's kiss. Crystal clear water with tiny fish darting around. Hydration tasting like liquid heaven. No giant monstrous claw marks on the shores. No gnawed-up predator skeletons lying around. So far so good. Nothing massive had been lurking around here lately. Securing easy WS back at base. I started burning through resources, like a hyped kid with birthday cash. Dropped 40 wood on a brand new lumber camp. And watched it literally materialize out of thin air in an hour. Shoved Lin 1 and Lin 4 straight inside. And out of nowhere, these 2 were grinding out timber like absolute beasts. 10 units per person every single hour. 12 hours a day equals 240 wood daily. Way better than scavenging like literal cavemen. Lin 2 locked down the ultimate farming spot by the river. And was already hacking away at the dirt with his hoe. Like it owed him rent. I slapped down 10 wood for a plot. Handed him the starter seeds and boom. My food supply chain was officially live. First harvest dropping in 6 hours. Not instant ramen speed, but I'll take the dub. For one glorious second I stood right there, watching my tiny empire hum along and thought, wait, this is actually working, I might not bite it today. Then Lin 3 grabbed my arm and whispered in panic, My lord, something is heading this way. I slammed my face right against the fence and peered through the wooden gaps. The bushes were shaking violently, low growls echoed out. And then two absolute monsters stepped out of the treeline. Wolf beasts. Except way uglier and more psychotic than any wolf has any business being. With fangs sharp as kitchen knives. And glowing green eyes. Both locked dead on my farmers and on me. Specifically targeting me, the skinniest, most defenseless walking snack in the valley. Back on Earth, 14 billion viewers instantly screamed at their monitors, "Run. Hide, it is completely over." Some guy literally typed in chat, "Is heaven accepting applications from China?" My brain instantly went into flat panic. Run where? This fence is basically a decoration. Fight with what exactly? Lin 3's dollar store axe and my toothpick arms. Wait, the barracks. The actual Age of Empires barracks. I can build troops. I checked my wood count. 65 units. Barracks costs a full 100. I am 35 short. Lin 1 and Lin 4 had literally just started chopping wood 5 minutes ago when the wolves closed in. Time was completely running out, and I didn't have any left to spare. Two nightmare wolves slammed right into my fence, like it was built from toothpicks, which honestly it pretty much was. Lin 3 vaulted in front of me screaming, "Fall back, my lord," with absolute murder in his eyes, totally heroic, and deeply appreciated. But one dude with a trash axe versus two demon wolves? The math just wasn't matching. Instantly, my brain kicked into survival mode. I scanned the area frantically. Buildings, some tools, and a junk pile. A junk pile loaded with stones and sharp sticks. My inner caveman woke up from a million-year nap. Lin 3, don't block them. Head-on dodge. Lin 1, Lin 4. Grab rocks now. One wolf shattered the fence, like it was made of cardboard, while the other locked right onto me, looking for the easiest meal in the valley. I snatched a rock and hurled it with everything I had. Bonk. Straight across the snout. Turns out wolf noses are absurdly sensitive. Who knew my useless binge-watching of nature docs would actually save my life? The beast howled and staggered. I kept the pressure on. Second rock. Third rock. My aim was absolute garbage. But I was running on pure adrenaline and terror, which apparently makes an incredible motivator. Lin 1 and Lin 4 charged back in swinging sticks and axes. Lin 4 went for the ultimate high-risk power move, and drove his axe right between the beast's legs, only landing a shallow cut. But the wolf was deeply offended by the sudden emergency neutering, and spun around to attack them instead. Then a massive light bulb went off in my head. Those broken tree branches with razor-sharp ends. I could craft spears. I snatched Lin 4's axe, and started hacking away like an absolute madman, shaving a thick branch down into a jagged spike. My hands went numb, splinters flying everywhere. My crafting technique? A solid 0 out of 10. But I didn't care. People were bleeding out here. 1 minute later, I tossed the crustiest spear ever made straight to Lin 3. The second that absolute Chad got a longer weapon, the entire dynamic flipped because reach is everything. He buried that point deep into the first wolf's shoulder. I cranked out a second spear for Lin 1, and suddenly my farmers were poking holes in wolf number 2. From a safe distance, but we were running on fumes. Lin 3 was leaking from multiple nasty cuts, totally sapping his speed, while Lin 1's arm was shredded, and I could barely feel my arms. The wolves were hurting but bloodthirsty and pissed off. That's when Lin 2 materialized out of nowhere. My quiet dirt farming MVP, rocking 0 weapons besides his trusty hoe. He crept around the flank waiting for the absolute sweet spot, while wolf number 2 was completely tunnel-visioned, and drove that farming hoe straight into the beast's kneecap. Crack! That leg snapped sideways, in a way physics never intended. The wolf hit the dirt like a collapsing IKEA table. Lin 1 and Lin 4 went completely rabid on it, with a flurry of spear thrusts. Meanwhile, wolf number 1 watched its homie go down, and froze up for a split second, which was all the opening Lin 3 needed. He lunged forward, and jammed his spear straight through the wolf's open maw, bursting out the back of its neck. Both targets neutralized. Fight over. I stood there trembling, drenched in sweat, surrounded by gore and lifeless monsters, alongside 4 battered farmers, wheezing like blown-out engines. Then my knees buckled and I dropped hard onto the dirt. We actually won using rocks and pointy sticks, a garden hoe, and for absolute legends who refused to quit. Back in the real world, the stream chat went absolutely ballistic. Viewers losing their minds screaming Lin 3 is a god. That Ho strike was legendary status. Maybe this basement streamer isn't completely useless after all. I checked my inventory would count still locked at 65. Still can't afford the barracks upgrade. But right now I scored something way better. 2 massive wolf carcasses packed with prime meat. Thick fur, solid bones, and high-grade tendons. This crisis just turned into our ultimate loot drop. Lin 2 patch up the wounded troops. Lin 4 help me drag these ugly beasts inside the base. We're feasting on monster meat tonight, boys. As darkness finally fell, and there I was standing over 2 dead wolves thinking, these hideous beasts are about to save our lives. Linford got straight to work butchering them by moonlight. Not glamorous at all. But every single chunk of meat hitting the storage made my soul sing. First wolf. 180 units of food. Second wolf. 175 units grand total. Nearly 400 units of grub. We went from staring death in the face to eating like absolute royalty for a week. Also scored 2 pristine pelts for crafting and 8 razor-sharp fangs. Not exactly a luxury shopping spree. But out here in this wasteland, monster teeth are basically high-end assets. Night fell and I set up a guard rotation. Looking like I actually knew what I was doing. Lin 1 resting inside nursing his injuries. Lin 2 taking the first half patrol. Lin 3 dropping in right at midnight. Lin 4 passing out the second he finished surgery on those wolves. And me crashing on a miserable bed staring blankly at the ceiling. Flinching at every single howl echoing in the dark. Totally pretending I wasn't terrified out of my mind. Easily the longest night of my existence. Every weird creak made my heart skip a beat. Yet somehow nothing dared to test us. Guess the universe decided to throw us a bone. Pun completely intended. Morning broke and I vaulted up like a man possessed. One objective: get that barracks built. Lin 3 and Lin 4 sprinted straight to the lumber camp. Axes started swinging. And I stared at the wood counter like an absolute madman. 66. 67, 68. Come on, keep pushing. The second that counter hit the magic 100, I slammed that build button so violently. I nearly snapped my wrist. Every single piece of lumber vanished instantly. 0 in the bank, but a glowing military stronghold started materializing right in the center of the base. And honestly, I didn't care about being broke. 1 hour later the barracks stood proud. Looking insanely intimidating. Towering right over my pathetic little farm and tiny shack. Glorious. I pulled up the training menu and started drooling instantly. Militia archers, heavy swordsmen. Real soldiers packing real steel. Then I had my big cinematic moment, calling Lin San over, the absolute legend, who shoved a spear straight through a wolf's jaws yesterday. I got right down to business. Lin San, you've proven your absolute grit. Will you step up as my first imperial swordsman? He dropped to one knee, eyes burning with fierce loyalty. I'll follow you to the gates of hell, my lord. Perfect. System. Upgrade Lin San to imperial swordsman. Asterisk system response. Cost 80 food, 50 wood. You have 313 food and 0 wood. Asterisk. Transaction denied. Insufficient wood 0. I had just blown every last stick building the barracks. And completely spaced out on the fact that elite upgrades cost wood too. Lin San was still kneeling there, looking up at me with these big, hopeful puppy dog eyes, while I stood frozen with the exact expression of a guy who just tried to flex at a luxury restaurant and watched his credit card get declined. So, slight change of plans, buddy. Go chop some more trees. We'll circle back to this. To his credit, he took it like an absolute beast, grabbed his axe, and marched back to work. Even harder than before. Meanwhile, the entire Chinese internet was roasting me alive. Bro forgot the wood math is hard. Someone please get this man a pocket calculator. Fair enough, I totally deserved that one. Back to the grind. Waiting and watching numbers tick upward. One single log at a time. Food crisis? Officially solved. I had nearly 400 units of grub safely banked. Time to stop scraping by and actually start building an empire. First order of business. I desperately need more manpower. Relying on one dude to chop wood is like trying to drain the ocean with a cocktail straw. I marched straight up to the stone tablet and slammed down 160 food to summon 8 brand new settlers. Yeah, watching that massive food stash vanish hurts. But you gotta spend capital to make capital. Or in my grim reality, spend wolf meat to forge a civilization. 8 blinding pillars of light later, I had a fresh squad of 8 recruits standing tall before me, a mix of guys and gals, all bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and ready to hustle. Sure, they were all D-rank talent. Nothing flashy, but I didn't need genius masterminds. I needed warm bodies and working hands. I went full middle manager mode. You 4, hit the lumber camp right now. You 3, go help Lin San throw up more farms. And you, take perimeter patrol and patch up those fences. Everyone scattered. Like ants stumbling on a dropped sugar cube, the lumber camp went from one lonely axe swing to a full-on percussion concert. Chop chop. Chop chop. Pure music to my ears. 5 people chopping means 50 wood an hour, basic math. I can actually handle this. Just 1 hour to grab Lin 3's upgrade materials. For once, waiting didn't feel like absolute torture. I even did a little VIP leadership stroll, visiting the workers and nodding approvingly, like a clueless CEO who has no clue what is happening, but desperately wants to look important. The new farmers worked twice as hard the second they saw me. The boss presence effect is so real. Once we hit 50. I summoned Lin 3 so fast he probably caught whiplash. Get in the barracks, big guy. 30 intense minutes of glowing and morphing later. Lin 3 walked out and I nearly lost my mind. Gone was the sweaty farmer in literal rags. Standing before me was a certified warrior. Studded leather armor, gleaming iron sword. Reinforced shield. He looked like he could punch a dire wolf right in the face. And the wolf would apologize to him. Imperial swordsman Lin 3, reporting for duty. I'm not crying. My eyes are just intensely sweating. Immediately queued up an archer. The system popped up saying I was 5 wood short again. But this time I just shrugged it off. 5 wood at our chopping speed is literally a 6-minute wait. Amateur hour mistakes are officially behind me, mostly. Soon enough, out struts my very first ranged unit. Imperial Archer, codename Hawkeye. Reporting for duty, Hawkeye. The system actually gave him a cool title and everything. Meanwhile, my title is still literally unemployed college graduate on the global leaderboard. Life is so unfair. I sent Lin 3 and Hawkeye out as a elite 2-man recon squad. Sword and shield up front. Bow covering from the rear. Scout 1 kilometer up and down the riverbanks. Map everything out. Note all resources and for the love of God, make sure you both come back alive. They disappeared into the valley looking like actual pros. Meanwhile, my base was absolute perfection. 5 axes hammering away at the timberline. 5 brand new farms rising together. Guards locked in on patrol, 14 lives under my command. A massive upgrade from just me and my depressing breakfast. Just 24 hours ago, the chat was finally starting to pop off. Now we're talking absolute unit spam. This is the vibe it actually feels like. Age of Empires. Someone deadass said they felt like raising a pet. Getting hooked on watching my base expand. You know what, I'm taking that as a W. Current status, 103 food, and reserves climbing fast. 5 farms about to go live. Pumping out 600 food a day. 2 legit soldiers holding down the perimeter. And for the first time since I dropped here, actual hope that I might not completely humiliate my entire country. Keyword might. While I was out here playing SimCity in Death Valley, the other world champions were flexing hard. America's Green Beret already had 3 militia locked, in tight formation, shredding through the wilderness like a tactical manual. Bro literally built a watchtower and stood on top, looking cinematic as hell. Meanwhile, Russia's Savage Bear was turning his base into a literal fortress. His guys driving massive logs straight into the dirt, building walls thick enough to laugh at a tank. His mantra, make it stiffer than Siberian permafrost. Meanwhile, I'm over here, rocking a fence a stray cat could sneeze through. But hey, I had farms. For gorgeous dirt squares loaded with future gourmet meals. And 5 squads. Turning timber into lumber at max velocity. Not as flashy as a medieval castle. But you can't eat stone walls, can you? Lin 3 and Hawkeye just rolled back from scouting. Looking like absolute action movie protagonists. Fresh claw gouges stamped across Lin 3's shield. 2 arrows missing clean from Hawkeye's quiver. Whatever ambush they walked into, they handled business. And the intel was pure gold. Upstream. A massive stone quarry, stone. The holy grail I need for Tier 2 buildings. And actual heavy artillery downstream. A massive, sprawling berry field. Basically a free-for-all supermarket growing out in the wild. The bad news? Fresh animal tracks are everywhere. Plus those creepy little green freaks are suddenly swarming across the river. They just keep peeking at us and ghosting. Super comforting, totally not unsettling at all. So I went full dictator mode. Like a caffeinated general hopped up on pure stress. Dispatched 3 guys to lock down the stone quarry and haul back some samples. Sent 2 more to stake claim and farm that berry patch. Dropped resources on a brand new militia unit. Just a basic spear and shield meat shield. Nothing crazy. Just another warm body between me and anything with fangs. That single recruit cost me a cool 50 food though, tanking my stockpile down to 53 units. And the live chat instantly lost its mind. Bro's going broke, way too aggressive. Someone teach this guy how to budget. Yeah, okay. While funds were tight, I slammed out 8 farmers in one go. Maxed Lin to level 3, and trained an archer plus another spearman. All in essentially a single day. My spending habits look like a broke college student, wielding their very first credit card. But here's the master play everyone's sleeping on. Tomorrow, those 4 farms start pumping out 480 units of food a day. Clockwork style every single day forever. Broke today, absolute agricultural tycoon tomorrow. Current roster, me 11 powerhouse farmers. 1 elite swordsman, 1 sharp-eyed archer. And 1 militia grunt. 15 people thriving in a valley that had 0 humans yesterday. Stone quarry is officially locked down. Berry field is getting farmed dry. Lumber production is running completely on autopilot, leaving only 2 nightmares keeping me awake at night. Those tiny green goblins across the river are multiplying fast. And I've got a bad feeling. They aren't just playing shy neighbor. Day 3 kicked off with a brutal wake-up call from hell. 2 instant death alerts. Blasted straight into every single player's head. Like an air raid siren custom-built by pure evil. Francis Guy just got stung to death by mutant killer bees, while our resident Aussie tried to loot, snatching eggs straight from a beast looking like a literal pterodactyl. Turns out that flying nightmare strongly disagreed with the idea. These weren't just brainless NPCs anymore. These were actual people carrying the weight of real countries. And just like that, they're completely wiped out. 2 nations down and only 2 lives left to burn. This sick game suddenly felt way too real for comfort. My food supply had cratered down to 33 units overnight. Normally that would cause a full-blown panic attack. Except I had 4 golden fields of grain, swaying gracefully in the morning breeze, looking like gorgeous, edible cheerleaders. Time to feast, Lin too. And his crew swarmed those crops. Like their very lives depended on it. Because let's be real, they totally did. First field dropped a massive 120 food. Second rolled in with another 120. Third smashed 120. And the 4th secured 120 more. My total skyrocketed past the 500 mark. And I swear I could hear heavenly choirs singing. The starvation crisis was officially dead. We were rolling in riches. Meanwhile, the global chat room had devolved into a brutal international roast fest. America's fanboys were clowning on me hard for playing Farmville, while Japan's overpowered swordmaster had already stacked 3 monster heads like rare Pokemon badges. Russia was flexing impenetrable fortress walls, sturdier than a tank. And some clown from Korea branded me a total system dependent farmer boy. My Chinese viewers immediately fired back with 0 chill. At least he's breathing while your French rooster. An Aussie kangaroo already threw away a life. Heavy farming is the ultimate meta, you absolute morons. Honestly, I gotta love my ride or dies. Though I didn't have time to waste on internet beef. Anyway. Sudden death broadcasts tend to realign your focus. Lightning fast. I dumped 150 food and 60 wood straight into the barracks. And locked in 3 brand new militia soldiers. 30 minutes later, 3 hardened spearmen marched out. Looking like a genuinely elite military squad. Coupled with Lin 3, Hawkeye, and my original militia bruiser. I was now packing 6 solid combat units. Still not a massive army, but definitely no pushover. Then Lin 7 and Lin 8 sprinted back from berry duty. Bearing some seriously disturbing news. They stumbled upon bizarre footprints. Neither beast nor human. Something entirely different tracking upstream. Without a doubt, they're tied to those freaky green freaks lurking across the river. The ones constantly spying on us and multiplying fast. My gut screamed. That sitting ducks waiting for them was a death sentence. France played it safe, Australia got reckless. And both paid the ultimate price. Lin 3, take 2 militia and Hawkeye cross that river, track down those green bastards and find out their numbers, their base of operations and how they fight, so we can strike first before they annihilate us. I ordered a preemptive strike, sounding like some battle-hardened commander, completely ignoring the fact that I was eating toothpaste, nutrition gel just 3 days ago. But those brutal death broadcasts flipped a switch inside me. Playing it safe gets you slaughtered in this nightmare world. Calculated risks are what keep you breathing. For armed fighters crossed the river and vanished into the dense treeline. I watched them disappear from the opposite bank, feeling the crushing weight of every decision, tightening like a vice around my chest. Resources were finally trickling in. 363 food, steady with supplies and rising stone stockpiles. 6 fighters, 11 hardworking farmers, and 1 chronically stressed, unemployed college graduate running this entire operation. The tutorial phase was officially over. Whatever came dragging itself back across that river was going to decide whether my next chapter was massive expansion or a shallow grave. I had just finished settling in 10 brand new farmers and drilling 2 fresh archers when Lin 1 started screaming bloody murder from the fence, like he'd just seen a ghost. My lord, something insane is happening across the river.
He bolted over.
Only to see Lin 3's squad bursting frantically out of the brush. On the far side, looking like they'd just been through a wood chipper, Lin 3's wooden shield was gouged with deep, vicious slash marks. 1 militia soldier's armor was slashed open and bleeding heavily, and Hawkeye's quiver was dangerously half-empty. These guys stepped out looking like elite soldiers, and crawled back looking like traumatized survivors. Lin 3 marched straight up to me, gasping like a blown-out engine. He slammed his fist against his chest and dropped the bombshell. My lord, we've located a goblin camp. Goblins. Of course it's goblins. Every single fantasy world comes with them, like a mandatory starter pack villain. Except these weren't cute little green runts. We're talking 30+ adults, a dozen wooden huts, organized patrols with active sentries, and 5 or 6 packing deadly slingshots, capable of crushing your skull. From a distance, my recon team got compromised, forced to fight off 7 or 8 bloodthirsty attackers. Hawkeye dropped 2, Lin took out 3 and wounded another, and they barely made it out before getting swarmed. Did they trail you back? I demanded, doing my absolute best to stay cool, while my stomach was doing flip-flops. Nah, they stopped at the river, screamed their heads off, and turned back. So the river was our choke point for now. Still, 30 goblins versus my meager 8 combat units. That math was downright brutal. The International Peanut Gallery was already blowing up the chat. America chimed in. Told you farming was a waste of time. Japan, flexing our sword master status, bragged, I'd clear this trash solo before breakfast. My Chinese viewers immediately clapped back. At least he actually knows what he's fighting, unlike that French guy who got taken out by killer bees. I needed to think fast. Charging in with 8 guys against 30+ hostiles was total suicide, but tucking tail wasn't an option either. This valley is my home turf, so I picked door number 3. Psychological warfare. Listen up. Rest for 1 hour, then mobilize every single fighting unit. All 4 militia, all 3 archers, and yourself, straight to our side of the riverbank. Full formation. Maximum intimidation. His eyes lit up. He caught the vision instantly. 1 hour later, 8 battle-hardened soldiers lined the river, looking like a top-tier spearman recruitment ad. Up front, shields locked tight together, spears angled skyward like a lethal metal forest. Lin stood, dead center radiating pure war god energy, with the 3 archers locked and loaded behind them. Forward shield strike. Thrust. Fire. They drilled their battle formations right there on the bank. Shields deafeningly clanging, spears stabbing in deadly unison, and heavy boots stomping the earth. Then 3 arrows shrieked across the river, and buried themselves deep into tree trunks. On the other side, still humming from the impact, the goblins completely lost it. Green freaks scrambling through the bushes and screeching. Like terrified toddlers, they'd been eyeing our pathetic little makeshift fence and sad excuse for a farm. This whole time thinking we were absolute free kills. Now they were staring down a disciplined squad, wielding actual gear and pulling off combat drills. Surprise, idiots, the psychological warfare totally worked. They panicked and scattered. Though I'm not delusional enough to think. Scared goblins are dead goblins. They're still out there, still 30 strong. Still a ticking time bomb right next to my base. Scaring them buys us breathing room, not survival. I quickly checked my inventory. 350 wood, stone trickling in nicely. Food production humming along without a hitch. And a brutal master plan started forming. More soldiers, way better gear. A fully upgraded base, and zero hesitation left. No more scare tactics were crossing that river. And burning their entire camp to ash. That little intimidation stunt bought us all of 5 minutes. Those green little psychos didn't run away. They just went dead silent, which is way worse. I sat down with my stone ledger. And crunched the terrifying numbers every leader hates. Food reserves. 137 units. Sounds decent. Until you factor in my daily burn rate of 40 units. Just keeping everyone breathing. And the crops won't be ready to harvest until tomorrow. I'm literally running an empire on fumes and pure hope. Then the system hits me with a gorgeous red alert. Too many citizens, absolute zero housing. Turns out cramming 20 humans into 2 wooden shacks. Tanks your morale, who would have thought. Time to drop 4 new houses. Boom, 120 wood gone just like that. I called Lin over and watched his face absolutely light up. Like a kid on Christmas morning. When I told him he's getting 10 dedicated farmers. The man damn near shed a tear. Just hand me the crew and I'll feed the whole damn world. He hollered, practically buzzing with pure agricultural hype. Gotta love this guy, 10 farmers. 10 fields, 1,200 food output every single day. Starting tomorrow. We're pivoting from scraping by straight into an agricultural superpower. 5 guys locked down the lumber camp. Maxed out with 4 more drilling away at the stone quarry. 3 on patrol, literally everyone had a job. My base looked like a totally well-oiled machine. Assuming the machine was made of literal sticks. And held together by pure desperation. Meanwhile, the internet was having its daily global meltdown. America just struck a massive iron mine. Japan's sword guy was casually slicing boulders in half. Russia upgraded to impenetrable spiked walls. And here I was, the reigning farming simulator champion. Getting absolutely roasted by every country's fan base. My people kept fighting back though. Who's still standing with full lives intact? That's right, us. Then the death bell tolled again. France's second representative. Dead. Australia's second representative. Dead. Both countries are now down to their absolute last life. And this time, the punishment wasn't just a warning. 10% of their actual homeland resources flat out vanished. Real geography altered. Real panic erupting on real streets. 2 deaths in 2 rounds? These nations were speedrunning total extinction. I barely had a second to process that horror when Lin 3 pulled me aside looking like he'd just bitten into a sour lemon. The goblins have a leader now. A huge one, rocking bone armor, wielding a massive stone axe. The others are bowing to him, a literal goblin boss. Fantastic. Just when I thought regular rabid goblins were enough of a headache. They went ahead and hired themselves a manager. I instantly canceled all rest shifts. Every single soldier on high alert, rotating in pairs, eyes glued to the river 24/7. I reinforced my houses, double-checked my farms, and walked every inch of my perimeter fence in pitch darkness, with Lin 3 glued right to my shadow. Then, right in that pitch-black hour before dawn, a piercing whistle echoed from upstream. Lin 1's emergency distress signal. The deafening clank of metal hitting metal. Goblins screeching in the dark. Those sneaky green bastards didn't even attack my main base. They bypassed us for the stone quarry, the isolated outpost. Defended by just 4 farmers and a single guard. They went straight for our absolute weakest spot. Like actual military masterminds. These weren't just brainless mobs. These were calculated tacticians. Lin 3, mobilize every single fighter to the stone quarry right now. Get archers on the high ground and bring everyone back alive. Lin 3 slammed his blade against his shield with raw fury. Sparks flying as he roared for the Lord. And plunged headfirst into the darkness with my entire squad. My people were bleeding and dying at that quarry. This very second, and all I could do was stand here in the shadows, listening to the screams echo across my valley, waiting to see if I'd even have a territory left.
Come sorrise.
Everyone around me was shaking like a leaf. A rookie militia kid beside me looked ready to pass out cold. My stomach was doing absolute backflips. But leaders don't panic out loud. Real leaders project ironclad calm, with a voice that sounds 10 times bolder than they feel inside. So that's exactly what I did. Meanwhile, down at the quarry, it was pure, unadulterated chaos. Lin 1, my absolute ride or die, my very first farmer, was plugging a broken fence gap like a human roadblock. His left arm was bent at a horrifying, unnatural angle, while his right hand swung a looted goblin axe, two lifeless bodies twitching at his boots. The four miners flanking him stood back to back, bringing heavy pickaxes down on anything green and moving. Every single one of them was bleeding out, yet refusing to fall. Then, Lin 3's strike force slammed into the melee, like an armored wrecking ball. The militia locked shields instantly, thrusting their spears forward, to forge an impenetrable wall of lethal points. The archers began picking off goblins, like it was a shooting gallery. Lin 3 himself turned into an absolute human blender, splitting a goblin clean from shoulder to hip. With one brutal sweep, the arterial spray was utterly gross, and honestly kind of sick. Don't judge me. But then the goblin boss, that bone-plated freak, charged straight at Lin 3 like a runaway refrigerator. Their weapons crashed with such monstrous force. It split Lin 3's palms wide open, shattering the bedrock beneath his boots. This brute was overwhelmingly strong, and our front line was barely hanging by a thread. Amidst cracking shields and a literal rain of boulders, goblins crawling through every single crack like vicious green roaches, one soldier's shield completely shattered. Another took a brutal rock straight to the shoulder. It was turning into a bloodbath of who collapses first. Back at base camp, I was pacing like a caged beast, when the most gorgeous words I've ever laid eyes on flashed on my screen: 4 farms ready for harvest. Dawn had finally broken and those crops were ripe. Lin 2 and his squad bolted for those fields, like Olympic sprinters. 480 food units instantly flooded my reserves. I didn't even hesitate. Just slammed for new militia right into the training queue. 200 food, 80 wood. 15 minutes flat, reinforcements inbound down at the quarry. Lin 3 was locked in the boss fight of a lifetime. The goblin chief was swinging that massive stone axe, like an absolute madman, all brute force. Zero strategy. Lin 3 noticed a fatal flaw. Every single time, the big idiot reared back his axe for a heavy swing. His armpit was left wide open. No bone plating there, just soft, vulnerable goblin flesh. Lin 3 faked total exhaustion and stumbled backward. The goblin boss totally swallowed the bait, cocked his axe way up high for the finishing strike, mouth hanging open in a cocky victory roar. Lin 3 dropped low and shot forward like a cannonball, driving his steel blade straight up through the goblin's armpit, until the tip punched right out the other side. The boss looked down in shock at the sword skewering him, let out a sigh like a punctured balloon, and face-planted hard into the mud. Boss is down. The remaining goblins completely lost their minds. Zero leadership, zero backbone left. They scattered frantically into the deep woods, screaming bloody murder, like kids spotting a spider the size of an SUV. Lin 3 ordered a full pursuit and his men hunted them down, leaving over 20 goblin corpses piled on the field. My troops limped back home, looking like they had survived a meat grinder. 2 guys had to be physically carried back. Another could barely stand. Everyone was gashed up, bruised to hell, exhausted and bleeding from somewhere. But their eyes, oh man, their eyes were blazing. I stepped up to meet every single one at the gate. You absolute legends of this territory. We'd lay down our lives for you, my lord. They rasped back, barely able to stay upright, yet meaning every single syllable. I definitely wasn't tearing up. It was just random valley dust blowing into both eyes at once. The goblin tribe was utterly wiped out. Their boss was flatline dead, most fighters were toast, and any remaining survivors were far too traumatized to ever pull a stunt again. Riding that massive high, I marched straight up to the stone tablet with huge ambitions. Upgrade territory to village tier. Cost: 800 food, 600 wood, 150 stone. My current food: 381. Insufficient resources. Upgrade failed. I face-bombed hard. Classic me, getting way ahead of myself as usual. Though honestly, I wasn't even mad. My farms were pumping, my quarry was locked down, and my enemies were running terrified. The upgrade would come soon enough. For the first time since landing in this chaotic nightmare, I wasn't just scraping by, I was actually starting to win. The morning after the Goblin War, my camp looked like a triage ward, collided with a demolition site. Lin 3 was covered in fresh lacerations. The archers were battered, and half the militia were limping. Lin 1's arm was basically ornamental at this stage. And me? I was staring down at my resource panel, like a broke college student checking his bank app after rent. Food, 381. Wood, 272. Stone, 52. Village tier upgrade cost, 800 food, 600 wood, 150 stone. I wasn't even in the same stratosphere as those numbers. I spent all morning compulsively spamming the upgrade button, like refreshing a package tracking page obsessively. Can I upgrade now? Nope. How about right now? Still nope. What about upgrading the archery range? Also nope. Train elite bowman? Stone critically low. Every single path was locked behind that infuriating flaming red text. Resources insufficient. The system was basically swatting my hands away, like a shady shopkeeper. So I did the only sensible thing left. Back to the brutal grind. Zero hype watching paint dry level grinding. 5 guys on chopping duty, chop, chop, chop. For guys slamming stone, clink, clink, clink. 10 farmers babysitting crops that refuse to grow until afternoon. 8 soldiers standing around striking tough poses by a fence. Me pacing back and forth, accomplishing a whole lot of nothing. The entire Chinese internet was watching me do absolutely zip. This was literally a live stream of a resource counter, ticking up by single digits. Peak entertainment. The world's most expensive progress bar. This is pure torture. He's just sitting there waiting. This is like watching grass grow, except the grass actually matters. Hours crawled by. Wood hits 272, 322, 372, 422, stone inches past 112. Still not enough. I could literally feel my hair going gray in real time. Afternoon brings more chopping, more mining, more staring. Wood hits 572, leaving me a mere 28 short of the 600 I needed. Stone crosses 172, target absolutely smashed. 1 resource down, 1 agonizingly close. Then the magic words dropped. 6 new farms ready for harvest. Lintu's crew swarmed those fields, like starving wolves at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Golden grain flying everywhere, bundles hauled to storage at absolute maximum speed. 720 food units secured, total at 1,101. The food crisis. That's been choking me since day 1, dead, buried, gone for good. I had more grub than I knew what to do with. My whole territory erupted in hype. Farmers were hugging each other, and even the injured soldiers cracked massive grins. Yet the upgrade still wouldn't trigger, because I was 28 wood short. 28. The lumber camp had already closed up shop for the day. Those 28 pieces of timber literally wouldn't exist. Until tomorrow morning. 28. That's like being $1 short at a vending machine. The universe dangling total victory right in front of my face. And telling me to come back tomorrow, loser. I was ready to lose my mind. I seriously wanted to go hack down a tree. With my bare hands. Instead, I took a deep breath, locked eyes with my crew, and delivered the most epic pep talk a guy screwed over by timber could possibly muster. The food crisis is officially over, and stone quotas are crushed. We are literally 28 pieces of wood away from leveling up. Tomorrow morning at first light, we finish this. Lin 4 roared back. Yes, sir. Like those 28 logs had personally disrespected his entire bloodline. That night, everyone kicked back by the campfires with a completely different vibe, no fear, no panic, just pure, uncut anticipation. We all knew exactly what tomorrow had in store. 28 chops, 1 massive upgrade, and a brand new era. Those 28 stupid pieces of wood were definitely haunting my dreams tonight. I swear, the whole world was watching my wood counter, like it was the World Cup finals. 572, 582, 592. I'm not kidding. I could practically hear a billion people holding their breath. I slammed my palm onto that stone tablet so hard. I'm amazed it didn't shatter. Upgrade to village level. 800 food, 600 wood, and 150 stone. Gone in a flash. My resource panel looked like my bank account after Black Friday, but honestly, I didn't care. A colossal pillar of light swallowed my entire base whole, and the grueling 6-hour transformation kicked off. But hey, I'm no dummy. Well, not today, anyway. I instantly harvested 4 ripe farms for a sweet 480 food boost, and kept every single worker grinding right through the upgrade. Lumber camp chopping, quarry mining. Not one person was sitting on their hands. 6 solid hours of free resource stacking. While the magic does its thing. Sign me up. Meanwhile, a quick peek at the competition gave me major mixed feelings. America's Green Beret captain had just casually soloed a centaur outpost and was already flexing about enchanting weapons. Total show-off. Japan's top swordmaster, meanwhile, just slaughtered a mutant giant mountain cat deep in a bamboo forest and was having some kind of insane spiritual breakthrough regarding his ultimate blade technique, leveling up his own personal combat zone. Basically, this absolute madman was speedrunning the solo warrior build, while completely ignoring the fact that this is literally a civilization strategy game. Meanwhile, some guy from India tried copying my farming meta, but totally botched the math. Not gonna lie, I felt that deep in my soul. 6 hours past noon hit, and boom, the light pillar exploded. Upgrade complete. Territory bumped to village level 2. Pure energy washed over the entire map. Structures grew massive, sturdy, and high-tech. The territory expanded, and me, I could literally feel myself getting stronger. Faster, with razor-sharp reflexes. Like someone maxed out my stats. From absolute 0 to slightly less trash tier progress. I dove straight into the new tech tree. Like a hyper kid ripping open holiday presents. Unlocking brand new troops. Imperial crossbowmen and Imperial halberdiers. Plus new buildings like the archery range and blacksmith. The crossbowmen especially caught my attention. These weren't some diminutive little bows. These were heavy-duty, armor-piercing death machines. 6 hours of relentless grinding stacked up 300 wood and 142 stone. Time to blow it all in 60 seconds flat. Like a shopping addict on payday. Build archery range. 120 wood, 80 stone done. Train 4 crossbowmen. 240 food, 160 wood, 40 stone done. Build blacksmith. Wait, insufficient resources? Short 20 wood and 22 stone. Broke again, obviously. But this time it was all calculated. Every single resource went precisely where it needed to go. Even the Chinese chat room was genuinely impressed. For once his math is actually spot on. Not a single unit wasted. Look at the guy go. Finally not embarrassing myself with basic arithmetic. Naturally, the American fans threw shade. He's still way behind our curve. While Russia claimed I was playing way too aggressively. But I knew the ultimate priority. Raw firepower right now. Save the flashy upgrades for later. Those goblins were still out there licking their wounds. And I wanted to welcome their comeback tour. With a literal wall of crossbow bolts. 1 hour flat and the archery range materialized. Spitting out 4 elite crossbowmen from the barracks. In one synchronized drop. These guys were hauling heavy-duty mechanical crossbows. Sleek, metallic, and absolutely lethal. The second my existing squad laid eyes on those guns, you could physically watch their morale skyrocket off the charts. The squad leader stepped up and saluted me. Callsign Iron String. I immediately slotted him under Lin 3's command, paired him with Hawkeye to lock down coordination, and turned the whole base into a hardcore war zone. For the rest of the afternoon. Bolts and arrows tearing through the air like screaming missiles. Troops locking down battle formations. The entire valley. Throbbing with the energy of a base that was done being easy prey. My army was stacked now. 1 swordsman, 3 archers, 8 militia, 4 heavy crossbowmen, 16 versatile, combat-ready units. Maybe not the biggest superpower on the continent yet, but definitely not the pushover everyone expected me to be. Stockpiles were running dangerously dry across the board, but my farms were locked and loaded for a massive harvest. The quarry was pumping, the lumber camp was maxed out, and for the first time ever, I had enough firepower to actually take the fight to them. The farming simulator era was officially over. The war arc was just getting started. The glow from the level up hadn't even faded yet. Before I was glued back to the stone tablet, tweaking it like a degenerate at a slot machine. 6 golden fields of heavy grain were swaying in the sunset breeze right outside, practically screaming at me to reap the rewards. Didn't have to tell me twice. Lin 2, harvest everything right now. Leave not a single stalk behind. That absolute unit and his agricultural squad swarmed those fields. Like a reverse plague of locusts. 6 fields, 120 food units a pop. System chimes ringing off inside my skull. Like a cash register on Black Friday. Cha ching, cha ching. Ching, ching, Ching. Final food count. 1,501 units flat. I went from rationing stale wolf meat 3 days ago to sitting on a massive mountain of grain, like some kind of medieval Jeff Bezos. The sheer thrill of financial security, even fake medieval financial security, is utterly intoxicating. With my starvation fears officially squashed, I went on a spending spree that would genuinely make a lottery winner nervous. For new militia recruits, that's 200 food and 80 wood down. And honestly, couldn't care less. Blacksmith building, 150 wood and 100 stone. Take it all, baby. I was swiping my resource card left and right, like I owned the place. Which, let's be real, I totally do. The lumberjacks and stone miners grinded until sunset, squeezing out every last available unit. By the time the day wrapped up, I was staring down 1,301 food, 390 wood, and 162 stone. Numbers that would have made me weep tears of joy. Just 2 days ago? Now they're just a standard Tuesday. Then the blacksmith unlocked a tech tree that made my inner gamer squeal in delight. 3 sweet research paths, attack boost, weapon sharpness or armor toughness, all handing out solid 10% bonuses. I locked in the attack upgrade without even blinking. When you're actively planning to storm across a river and totally obliterate a goblin village, you don't waste time investing in defense. You double down on hitting infinitely harder. 200 food, 100 wood, and 50 stone fed straight into the forge. The furnace roared violently to life, locking the research in to complete overnight. By morning, every single one of my soldiers would hit 10% harder and meaner. I stepped outside as the shadows swallowed the camp, and gazed across the river toward the eerie goblin forest. Quiet, way too quiet. Those green morons had zero clue what was about to hit them. My current squad? 1 elite swordsman, 3 archers for heavy crossbowmen, and 12 disciplined militia. My economy? 10 booming farms pumping out enough grub to feed a small city. Lumber and stone flowing like an endless river. A blacksmith churning out upgrades while the world sleeps. And a territory that transformed from utterly pathetic. From a wooden fence to a full-blown village. In just 4 days. 4 days ago, the entire world laughed at China for sending a broke, jobless college student. 4 days ago, I was drooling over scraps of cabbage. Tomorrow, those filthy goblins across the river are about to learn a brutal lesson about never messing with farmers. I stared at that dark tree line with the deadliest gaze I've ever mustered. Across 2 lifetimes. No more waiting. No more turtling up. Tomorrow we go on the attack. Day 4. Barely caught any sleep, spending all night plotting tactical layouts, like a hyper-paranoid grandmaster. As dawn broke, the system claimed its daily food tax, 66 units straight from my total population, before dropping the ultimate morning power-up. Offensive research complete. All units get a flat 10% attack boost. My soldiers could physically feel it. Grips locking tighter, eyes turning razor-sharp. God, science is gorgeous. I harvested 4 morning farms, pulling in 480 food and pushing my stash to 1,515. Then I stepped right up to my entire squad. 21 elite fighters locked in formation, shields gleaming, spears dead straight, crossbows locked and loaded. They looked insane. I dropped a hype speech about blood, soil, and absolutely slaughtering for our home. Kept it brief. Nobody wants a chatty general. Are we gonna sit back and wait to get jumped again? Hell no. Are we crossing that river to end this once and for all? Damn right. Then move out. We crossed the freezing river at dawn. Water surging up to our knees. Not a single soldier flinching as we pushed into goblin territory. The plan was flawless, our formation was ironclad. Morale was through the roof. And then we caught the stench of smoke. Lin 3 threw up his fist, and the entire vanguard froze. Something was deeply wrong. It was way too quiet. No scratching goblins, no scouting patrols. Absolute silence. Just the reek of burning timber and something sickeningly, unnervingly rotten. We shoved past the final thick brush and locked eyes with the goblin camp, or what was left of it. The place was totally wrecked. And trust me, it wasn't us. Most of the huts were reduced to smoldering ash, with mutilated goblin carcasses littered everywhere. Throats ripped to shreds, skulls completely caved in, bodies completely ripped apart. Whatever did this wasn't holding back. It was pure raw savagery. Overwhelming, brutal violence. The few survivors were curled up tight in the corners, trembling. whimpering, totally broken, and too terrified to even attempt running from us. My entire army stood frozen with weapons raised high, and absolutely zero enemies left to fight. Lin 3, check those bodies out. Not from combat, my lord. Look at these deep claw marks and massive bite marks. Something insanely powerful ambushed them last night. Multiple creatures. They got completely slaughtered. Cool. So there is a beast out there capable of wiping out over 30 goblins in a single night. Like it's just a casual hobby, and I have no clue what it is or which way it went. Super reassuring. What about the survivors? Lin 3 asked, pointing straight at the shaking green wretches. Huddled in the rubble. I stared down at them. They had attacked my people, injured my soldiers, and nearly killed. Lin 1. They might be weak right now, but weakness today doesn't mean weakness tomorrow. Take care of them. 2 words. Zero hesitation. Lin 3 didn't even blink either. The militia moved in, and 30 seconds later, our goblin problem was permanently resolved. Then, one of my soldiers hollered from the back of the camp. My lord, I found something. Inside a half-collapsed hut sat a crude stone altar, holding actual treasure. A glowing yellow crystal pulsing intensely with energy. 3 mysterious leather scrolls, covered in bizarre runes, and a whole stack of refined iron ore. Real loot from an actual dungeon clear. My inner gamer was ecstatic. The exact second I touched that crystal, the global announcement system went absolutely nuclear. Attention all players on Blue Star. China Representative Lin Tian has successfully conquered and cleared the festering goblin camp. Small. First territorial conquest achieved. 3 times. The announcement echoed 3 straight times across every mind. On the entire planet, rewards instantly flooded in. 500 food, 300 wood, 200 stone, plus a massive special bonus. A 24-hour buff, boosting any single resource production by a whopping 50%. The entire Chinese internet just went nuclear. First blood is officially ours, and an unemployed kid pulled it off. Farming meta is fully confirmed. Some guy literally shattered his mic screaming. America's losing its mind asking how a college kid beat Japan. Haters are coping saying he just got lucky and stole the credit. Russia. They're out there conquering while everyone else is still building walls. I should have been popping champagne. And part of me was stoked about the free loot and global clout. With my whole country losing their minds with national pride. But standing right there in that smoking graveyard, clutching a warm, glowing crystal, I couldn't shake this one terrifying thought. Whatever just slaughtered 30 goblins in a single night was still out there. It was packing more heat than anything I'd faced yet. And it was lurking somewhere in my valley. The goblins weren't even the real threat. They never were. Something way worse was hiding in these woods. And it already knew my drop zone. I was standing knee-deep in goblin ashes, holding this pulsing yellow rock, when my smartwatch started vibrating like crazy, like it was having a full-on seizure. A golden UI popped up, with text that literally short-circuited my brain. Land materialization detected. This crystal wasn't just ordinary loot. It was a literal teleporter. I could use it to yoink land straight from the war continent, and paste it directly onto Earth. Right into China. Real territory. Real trees, real water on a planet that's 70% dead wasteland. I sprinted back across the river so damn fast. I probably smashed an Olympic record. Burst straight into my town center. Slapped the crystal hard onto the stone tablet. And the entire building lit up. Like a rave party on steroids. The system instantly scanned my turf. 0.8 square kilometers of prime valley. River and forest officially eligible for transfer. Then dropped the multiplier lottery. Rolling completely random between 1x and 100x. Every single human on Earth was locked in watching. 14 billion Chinese citizens collectively held their breath. City plazas everywhere packed with dead silent crowds. The Grand Elder and every government bigwig were leaning so far forward. They were practically diving out of their seats. The final number locked in. 27 by 27 times 0.8 times 27 is equal to a massive 21.6 square kilometers of lush, living terrain. About to violently manifest right here on Earth. The ancient stone tablet didn't just flash light. It surged with raw energy. Something dimensional. Something fundamentally breaking the laws of reality. I could literally feel a chunk of my territory's soul get ripped away, stretched across dimensions, and violently slammed into physical existence. Way out across the cosmos. Right down on Earth, smack in the middle of the Atacama Desert. One of the most lifeless, bone-dry, and hopeless stretches of dust on the planet. Emergency alarms blared inside a local research station. Startled scientists scrambled to their monitors as live satellite feeds flooded the screens. And there it actually was. 21 square kilometers of roaring life materialized out of thin air. Rolling hills draped in dense forests. A crystal-clear river carving straight through the core. Rich, dark topsoil bordering what used to be dead wasteland. It genuinely looked like God hit Control-V in the wrong folder and just decided to leave it there. The global broadcast system lit up instantly. China's representative, Lin Tian, has successfully spawned 21.6 square kilometers of prime land onto Blue Star. China went completely unhinged. People openly weeping in the streets. The news anchor's voice completely cracked live on air. The resident military analyst slammed his desk so hard. He definitely shattered the wood. 14 billion people simultaneously suffered. A massive emotional whiplash from we're all doomed. To wait, we actually got an oasis in the desert. Meanwhile, the rest of the world was radiating pure, concentrated, weapons-grade saltiness. America's live chat pivoted from hyping their iron mind straight into a wall of pure WTF. Japan's fanbase called it a glitch. Russia's chat spam-typed sheer disbelief on loop. India swore they'd pull off the exact same stunt any second now, while France and Australia, both hanging on by their absolute last threads, were drowning in an ocean of pure envy. The summoning crystal dissolved into fine dust after exhausting its power. Completely gone, but what it left behind was permanent history. 21 square kilometers of ultra-fertile, habitable, resource-loaded paradise. On a planet where every single patch of green was worth more than solid gold. I stood right there in my cramped town hall, feeling this insane rush to that distant oasis. I just unlocked, and something deep inside me flipped. This wasn't just about basic survival anymore. This wasn't about failing my entire country. Every single battle I crushed, every camp I wiped out, every rare crystal I secured meant more breathing room. For a starving nation that hadn't laid eyes on fresh veggies in years. Just 4 days ago, the world laughed in my face. Just some broke nobody playing farmer in a literal death trap. Now every global superpower knew my damn name, and every government was sweating bullets, asking the same terrified question. How the hell do we catch this college kid? The crystal dissolved into pure stardust. The ancient stone tablet went dead silent, and I stood there feeling like I just hardwired 21 square clicks of absolute paradise straight into my motherland's treasury. Because honestly, that's exactly what I did. Not bad for a guy who was literally eating toothpaste 4 days ago. Though my victory dance lasted all of 3 seconds. Before harsh reality punched me in the gut. I had just pulled off the craziest stunt on the entire globe. Every continent watched that global broadcast. Every world leader now knew the meta. Clearing camps drops broken crystals. Crystals mean territory expansion, and some broke. Chinese college dropout was currently sitting at rank 1. I basically painted a massive, glowing bullseye on my back and handed out VIP passes right to my doorstep. Just then, Lin 3's elite cleanup squad rolled back with the loot. 20 units of ultra-refined iron ore, which is practically mythic tier out here, plus 3 sketchy, worn leather scrolls, scrawled with squiggles that looked like a drunk spider, crawled through an inkwell. Absolutely nobody could read them. Not Lin 3, not Hawkeye, not a single one of my gatherers. We just stood there staring at the ancient runes, like cavemen discovering an iPhone. So I marched them right up to the administrative tablet, and let the system's magic decoder work its magic. Scroll 1 unlocked a killer perk, Earth Element Sensing, letting miners literally feel high-grade veins. Buried deep underground, basically a magical metal detector. Instant value, no cap. Pulling up a partial map of our zone. We've got the goblin camp, the river, and oh joy!
A massive, terrifying danger marker upstream.
It's definitely tied to whatever. Nightmare Beast slaughtered 30 goblins in their sleep. You know, the exact thing I'm actively trying not to panic over. Then there's Scroll 3 detailing a sick blood ritual called Bloodthirst, which temporarily shatters your limits in a fight, before totally wrecking your body afterward. The goblin boss definitely tapped into this. Fascinating, but holy crap, terrifying. I immediately sent Lin 9 and the mining crew to master the earth-sensing technique right away. 20 minutes later, Lin 9 sprints back into camp, looking like he just harnessed electricity. My lord, The rocks are literally talking to me. I can feel exactly where the high-tier ore is. Beautiful. My miners just unlocked supernatural GPS. Meanwhile, back in the real world, the government had already locked down my oasis, with elite operators and top-tier scientists. Their official reports were basically a full-on love letter to dirt. Soil fertility is completely off the charts. Water pure enough to drink straight from the source. Mutated trees growing at an insane rate. And massive energy mineral deposits hidden underground. The Grand Elder immediately greenlit Project Hutu, dispatching every premier scientist to study and develop the newly claimed territory. Across the globe, absolute meltdown. The US president was literally screaming at his cabinet over why their green berets hadn't secured a single crystal yet. Russia wired encrypted orders straight to their colonel. Push harder, we need that land. Japan's sword master got a frantic spiritual summons from religious brass, demanding that he hunt down a sacred artifact of the Yamato spirit. India was just praying to hold the line, while France and Australia were down to their last lives, watching me rake in wins, while their own reps kept biting the dust. Every nation that spent months mocking China's farming strategy suddenly had their governments calling emergency war room meetings, ordering their players to stop playing around and start conquering. Time for me to jumpstart heavy weapon research at the blacksmith. Weapon sharpening level 1, because a razor-sharp blade fixes pretty much everything. Slapped down orders for 4 new farm plots, because food is the absolute king. Then I rolled out the fully decoded map and called in my commanders. The goblins are wiped, but something way nastier lives upstream. We're deploying a recon squad to track down the threat, map out nearby resources, and most importantly, see if there are more of those sweet energy crystals. Lin 3's eyes lit up, like I just handed him an early Christmas bonus. He started picking his elite fighters. Before I even finished my sentence, I strode out to the edge of my territory and stared up the river into the gloomy forest. Somewhere in there lurked the freak that slaughtered an entire goblin tribe. Overnight, somewhere in there might be more crystals. More fuel to pump back to my starving home planet. The world was watching my every move. My country was banking on me. Rival nations were gunning for my head. And I was just an unemployed college grad who somehow became the most important guy across 2 dimensions. Talk about zero pressure. Victory celebration lasted for a solid 0 seconds. Before I transformed back into a stress-fueled CEO. The goblins were toast, but my settlement had a housing crisis. Specifically, 22 people currently sleeping under the open sky. I'd been so hyped up conquering and expanding turf that I totally forgot. My crew was literally stacking on top of each other. Like sardines. Boom, 10 houses queued up. And 200 would vanish just like that. I was burning through resources like a corrupt politician. With no budget limits. Then, I launched the biggest hiring spree in our brief history. 3 new farmers to man the vacant plots. Followed by 10 more farmers. Because why stop when you're cooking? 13 hungry new mouths to feed. But with over 2,000 food chilling in reserves, I could sustain an entire battalion. Which is clutch since I'm literally building a small army. My little patch of land was evolving from a cute starter village into a legit economic powerhouse. Right before my eyes. 14 farmers grinding across 14 fields under Lin 2, who was basically serving as my Secretary of Agriculture. At this point, the man had gone from tending a single lonely patch of dirt to ruling over a full-blown farming empire. In just 4 days, living his absolute best life. But the ultimate flex? 2 lumber camps, and 2 quarries with 10 woodcutters, and 10 miners all going ham simultaneously. My resource income literally doubled overnight. Wood and stone were flooding in, like I cracked open a fire hydrant of wealth. 600 wood and 300 stone, pulled straight from the afternoon shift alone. The blacksmith finally wrapped up weapon sharpening research, so I instantly queued up armor reinforcement. My troops were getting sharper, tougher, and way more lethal. Science never sleeps, so I trained for more crossbowmen. Because you can never have too many guys wielding medieval machine guns. Then I queued up even more, because I am apparently completely hooked on military spending. Now then, Lin 3's scouting squad rolled back into camp and dropped an absolute nuke on my evening. Upstream, they stumbled on a massive wolf pack. And not just 2 scrawny wolves like my first day. We are talking 50 bloodthirsty wolves led by a towering silver-furred alpha king. 50 wolves backed by a terrifying boss monster. So that's what completely obliterated the goblins overnight. Mystery solved, and the answer is pure nightmares. But, and here is the exact detail that made my greedy little heart skip a beat. They also located a rich vein of exposed copper ore, plus a brand new materialization crystal, known as a water rhythm crystal stone. Another crystal? That means another golden ticket to anchor territory back to Earth. More land secured for China. And a fighting chance for 14 billion people stuck eating nutrient paste. I instantly slapped down 2 watchtowers facing upstream, because I am definitely not about to let 50 wolves catch me. Sleeping in my pajamas. Those towers went up with torches blazing. Sentries posted, crossbows locked and loaded. By nightfall, I tallied up the final numbers and almost choked on my spit. Food, 2,239. Wood, 710. Stone, 452. Iron ore, 35. Total population sitting at over 50 humans. With 21 of them combat-ready badasses. 14 massive farms pumping out grain by the metric ton. 2 lumber camps. And a pair of quarries cranking at max capacity. Just 4 days ago I had a single tube of toothpaste and a frail frame. Now, I was sitting on an absolute goldmine of resources with a private army. A fully operational forge, high-tier watchtowers. And the first game-breaking land expansion in the entire history of the war continent. The whole damn world was scrambling to catch up to this broke college dropout. But standing between me and that next mana crystal was a bloodthirsty silver wolf king, and 50 of his most lethal subordinates, all of whom definitely figured my burgeoning territory smelled like a prime all-you-can-eat buffet. I stood atop my town center under the pale moonlight, staring upstream into the pitch-black shadows, where those apex predators were lurking. The blacksmith's forge cast a fiery glow behind me. Elite troops were drilling hard by torchlight. Stockpiles overflowing. Tomorrow we go wolf hunting. Taking down 50 beasts and a boss should be a blast. Terrifying as hell, sure, but an absolute thrill. I was posted up on my rooftop, peering into the abyss like a hyper-vigilant owl, when Lin 3 materialized behind me and dropped the exact phrase no commander ever wants to hear at midnight. My lord. We've got hostile eyes tracking us from across the river. Tons of them. Well, here we go. I knew this was coming. You don't just roll into a wolf pack's backyard, slaughter their goblin neighbors, and run recon on their turf, expecting a welcome basket in return. I immediately sounded full red alert. Every single civilian locked down in the stone fortress. Every combat unit locked onto their battle stations. The entire settlement plunged into dead, eerie silence, broken only by crackling flames, and the local blacksmith still hammering away like a madman, because apparently, forging master-grade spearheads waits for no apocalypse. 8 elite spearmen braced tight behind the barricade. Archers and crossbowmen manned the watchtowers, and my command post, while Lin 3 took charge of the rapid response squad, primed to plug any breached lines. Textbook defensive warfare. Assuming the textbook was penned by some psychopath who learned every single tactic from video games. Then the wolf king let out a howl that literally froze my blood solid. A whole pack, 30 plus, of green-eyed nightmares, exploded straight out of the tree line and plowed into the river, without even breaking their stride. Freezing water meant absolutely nothing to these freaks. They hit that current like it was solid concrete. Crossbows fired, for lethal bolts screamed across the water, dropping 3 wolves instantly. All that weapon-sharpening research turned those bolts into absolute flying death needles. Wolves tumbled into the rapids, painting the river crimson. But the rest just trampled right over their fallen bros, and kept charging. Zero hesitation, zero fear, pure teeth and unadulterated murder. The archers opened fire from the towers. Arrows rained down. But wolves are ridiculously fast and the lighting was garbage. Most shots missed or hit non-vital spots, which just made the beasts 10 times angrier. Because hey, injured wolves are famously chill and reasonable, right? 10 seconds later, they slammed into the fence. My spearmen lunged through the gaps, and skewered the front-runners clean through the chest. Combining attack research and weapon sharpening meant those spears sliced through wolf hide like warm butter. Except there were just way too many of them, slamming the barricade, squeezing through gaps, and genuinely trying to scale the wood. These weren't just animals anymore. These things were furry siege engines. The left section of the fence started violently buckling, so Lin 3 rushed 2 guys over to reinforce it. The entire line was cracking. Snarling, screaming, stabbing, arrows whistling. The noise was pure nightmare fuel. And the Wolf King, that silver-furred tactical genius, was just chilling on the far bank, like a grandmaster playing chess with live pieces. Not fighting, just observing and calculating every move. I ordered Hawkeye and Iron String to lock onto him, but the bastard stayed glued to maximum range, constantly shifting positions, and never giving us a clean opening. Honestly, the smartest animal I've ever despised. Then the barricade completely shattered. A weak link just snapped wide open, and 2 massive beasts poured through, like a flash flood rushing through a crack. One slammed a militiaman flat on his back. The guy somehow got his shield up, just in time to keep those jaws off his throat. But a second wolf was already lunging straight for his neck. Out of nowhere, Lin 3 materialized, like an absolute angel of death. His blade came down with insane force, splitting that second beast practically in 2. Head to tail, the first wolf whirled around to face him, and Lin 3 instantly shield bashed it right in the face, before driving his sword straight through its heart. Before it even hit the dirt, 2 wolves down. 3 seconds flat, absolute zero mercy. Farmers sprinted forward with spare lumber to patch the breach, while the soldiers provided cover. My heart was literally pounding out of my chest. Then the Wolf King did something that sent a chill straight down my spine. He let out one single, sharp bark, and every single wolf immediately fell back. No panique, no frantic fleeing. This was an ice-cold, disciplined withdrawal. They even scooped up their dead and wounded on the way out, slipping back into the dark river, completely gone. Make no mistake, this wasn't a wild animal attack. This was a full-on military operation, a tactical probe. The Wolf King sent his vanguard to test our defenses, find every single weak spot, and pull back before taking too many casualties. He got the exact intel he came for. Final count, 11 wolves neutralized, with several more limping away, bleeding out. Our side, 0 dead, though we took some injuries. One poor guy had his arm and shoulder completely shredded. The fence was mangled but totally fixable. I ordered medics to patch everyone up immediately, then told the farmers to haul every single carcass inside. Because wolf meat is meat and the fur is pure profit. Even at 3 a.m., completely drenched in blood, the blacksmith swore he'd crank out 20 iron spearheads by dawn. Good, because my wooden gear is officially retiring. I stood right there at the broken fence, gazing across the pitch-black river, knowing damn well that Silver Wolf is out there, was staring right back at me. This wasn't over tonight, was just the appetizer. He'd seen our fence break. He'd seen right where we were weakest. Next time he'd bring everything. But next time my spears would have iron tips. My crossbows would pack way better bolts. And maybe, just maybe, I cook up a plan crazy enough to drop a Wolf King, who literally fights smarter than most humans. I've known the clock was ticking, somewhere out there in the dark. A silver wolf was already scheming round 2. The morning after the wolf ambush, my territory smelled like a butcher shop that got shredded by a tornado of blood, sweat, iron, and pure regret. The true cologne of war. I did a head count of my fighters. 21 total, 6 of them, limping around, like they lost a bar fight with a lawnmower. One guy's arm was basically holding on by bandages, and desperate prayers. Not great. But then I checked my resources, and almost kissed the glowing stone tablet. Food, 1,895. Wood, 845. Stone, 632. Iron ore, 38. Those 2 extra lumber camps and quarries I built. An absolute jigachad move. Past me was an absolute visionary. Current me was about to blow every single thing past me saved. Shopping spree number 9,000 for brand new militia. 200 food, 80 wood, purchased. For new crossbowmen, 240 food, 160 wood, 40 stone, purchased. I was swiping my resource card, like a guy who stared death in the face, and decided retail therapy was the only answer. Then came the big buy, the one that actually mattered. Building stone walls to replace that wooden fence upstream. Solid stone walls, no more toothpick. Barriers that feral wolves could body slam through. Like wasted party guests. 4 wall sections, 50 meters each, costing 800 stone and 400 wood. My stone reserves plummeted into negative. Numbers straight into a waiting queue. But I couldn't care less, my quarries would bounce back. That flimsy fence nearly got someone gutted last night. Never again. In an instant, the entire base turned into a mad construction zone. Farmers hauling heavy stone blocks, stacking them into actual fortress walls. Solid gray stone. Real walls. I touched one and it felt like pure safety. Like the massive difference between a cardboard box and a reinforced bank vault. Wolves aren't chewing through rock. Try it for size. New soldiers officially finished training. Throughout the day my army swelled to a solid 29 fighters. 1 elite swordsman, 16 eager militia, 4 sharp-eyed archers and 8 lethal crossbowmen. A legitimate military force now. I had Hawkeye and Iron String, drilling the ranged units on, destroying fast-moving targets because, fun fact, wolves don't politely stand still while you aim. Then Scout Lin 3 sprinted back from patrol, looking like someone just told him his dog didn't make it. My lord, they're completely going around us. Fresh wolf tracks spotted 3 kilometers downstream. They're trying to flank our entire position. Of course they are, because the Wolf King is, apparently, a furry tactical mastermind. He probed our front lines last night, mapped our weak points, and now he's sending scouts to find our backdoor. This isn't just a wolf pack, it's a strike team with paws. I instantly reshuffled everything. Amped up patrols on the flanks and rear. Watchtower coverage expanded to a full 360 sweep. Smoke signals locked and loaded for instant alerts. Every angle covered. Resources kept flooding in. 300 more wood, 150 more stone. By afternoon those wall sections were rising inch by brutal inch, transforming my territory from a vulnerable village into a stone fortress in progress. And I wasn't done yet. Dropping cash for more crossbowmen. For more archers. I wanted so much ranged firepower that any wolf dumb enough to approach my walls would turn into a walking pincushion, long before it even got within biting distance. By absolute nightfall my territory looked like a jacked hedgehog on pre-workout. Towering stone walls built up. On the danger side, armed soldiers patrolling everywhere. Loaded crossbows mounted on every elevated surface. Blazing torches lighting up the entire perimeter. The blacksmith hammering out razor-sharp spearheads non-stop. Because somewhere out there in the pitch-black forest, a ruthless silver wolf king was circling my base, analyzing every single flaw in my defenses, tallying up my troops, and scheming something truly diabolical. And there I was, a broke college grad turned accidental warlord, gazing into the pitch-black night, muttering to absolutely no one, "Still not enough. I need more, faster." The ultimate arms race between me and a literal wolf had officially begun, and losing was not an option. Night fell and I started counting my army like a paranoid dragon. Hoarding gold. 1 swordsman, 16 militia, 8 archers, 12 crossbowmen, 36 soldiers. Total 36. Just 5 days ago I had 0 soldiers, and was fighting off wolves with pointed sticks. Now I had an actual military, complete with specialized units and a real command structure. Talk about a glow-up of epic proportions. 1,055 wood, 565 stone, 387 iron, 45. Definitely not my wealthiest hour, but those newly built stone walls facing upstream? Absolutely solid. Solid in the sense that they actually existed, were built out of real stone, and weren't just held together by pure hope and toothpicks. Sure, they weren't tall enough or thick enough, but they were a massive upgrade from that pathetic wooden fence a wolf could literally sneeze through. Then, Lin strode in with his evening intel report, and utterly shattered my brief moment of peace. The Wolf King is trying to starve us out. Not literally, of course. My farms were completely secure, but that silver-furred tactical genius was systematically driving every single deer, wild boar, and forest creature far away from my territory, wiping out our hunting grounds, and cutting off all of our backup food supplies. It was basically a full economic sanctions package, just with razor-sharp teeth. Look, we've got farms, so that doesn't really... Oh, and by the way, they're occupying the copper mine. Excuse me? That copper mine was the backbone of my entire future upgrade tree, my ultimate strategic lifeline, and now a bunch of mangy wolves were squatting on it like freeloaders, claiming it as their own turf, and probably peeing all over everything. This wasn't just some random beast waging a normal turf war. This guy was playing high-level chess, systematically severing my supply lines and locking down resources. Completely pinned down, I was actually getting outgeneraled by a literal beast. An animal was running better supply lines than half the human leaders on this entire continent, just sitting behind my shiny new walls and waiting meant a slow, agonizing death by resource starvation. The wolf wanted a siege? Fine. Sieges cut both ways. We're taking that copper mine tomorrow. Lin 3's eyes lit up instantly. Finally, going on the offense. I handpicked the strike force. All 8 archers, all 12 crossbowmen, plus 6 of my elite militia, 26 fighters total. By far the biggest military operation my territory had ever launched. The mission objective was surgical. Hit the mine, wipe out the guarding wolves, claim the territory, snag as many of those precious materialization crystals as possible, and get out. Before the Wolf King could roll in with his main army, the blacksmith dropped off 20 brand new iron spearheads. Right in the nick of time, letting my militia swap their sad wooden points for gleaming metal blades. The glow-up was unreal. They went from random farmers with sticks to absolute units. You definitely do not want to mess with. Iron changes the game. I also trained 4 extra militia as a home guard, because I'm not dumb enough to march my entire army away and leave the base wide open. The wolves would totally pull a sneak attack on my headquarters while our backs were turned. That's exactly what I'd do if I were a genius alpha predator. And this Wolf King was definitely outsmarting me. Most of the time, crossbowmen checked their gear, archers honed their arrows, and everyone moved with absolute, deadly focus, no joking around. Tonight, even the villagers were prepping stretchers and field medics in the back, which was simultaneously reassuring and deeply terrifying. I stood tall on my new stone ramparts, gripping a genuine iron-tipped spear, my first real weapon, and stared deep into the pitch-black woods toward the den. Tomorrow I was poking the biggest, smartest, most dangerous beast in the whole damn forest. Well, technically a wolf, but the point stands, this raid was either going to shatter the Wolf King's grip on the valley, or piss him off more than anything I had ever faced. Honestly, probably both. Definitely both. Still, copper doesn't mine itself. Magic crystals don't harvest themselves. And wars sure as hell aren't won by hiding behind timber walls. Dawn was creeping in. 26 battle-hardened soldiers sleeping with their weapons strapped tight. While somewhere upstream, a massive silver wolf was probably running the exact same tactical equation. I was just with way better primal instincts and zero table manners. Tomorrow we find out who actually owns this valley. Darkness. Total. Absolute. Pitch black. Can't see your own hand darkness. I watched 26 of my elite fighters melt straight into the shadows, like ruthless ghosts carrying sharp instruments of doom. Point Man leading the charge with iron spearheads, glinting under the torches for one final, fleeting second. Before they vanished upriver, I slammed the gate shut, scaled my stone ramparts, and became the most stressed out spectator of my own war. The live global broadcast split the screen right down the middle. Cam 1 on me standing dramatically on a wall doing absolutely nothing. Cam 2 tracking Lin's squad through high-tech creepy-ass night vision, absolute peak television. The American commentator called my opening play aggressively bold. Meanwhile, the Japanese stream showed their legendary swordmaster casually meditating under a waterfall, because apparently, that's way more productive than actually developing territory. Some clown in the Japanese chat typed that I completely lacked warrior spirit. Bro, I've got 36 troops, your guy has a soaked ponytail, and 0 infrastructure to his name. Down at the copper mine, things blew up instantly. 15 pissed-off wolves were already squatting there, plus a massive brute of an alpha parked on a boulder, looking intensely bothered. Lin's squad got spotted right off the bat. Formations now. The subsequent crossbow volley was an absolute bloodbath. 5 or 6 beasts dropped dead before they even processed what hit them, falling like furry bowling pins. Heavy-duty iron bolts paired with maxed-out weapon research equals an instant, premium wolf removal service. The archers immediately followed up with devastating rain of death coverage. For about 10 glorious seconds, it genuinely looked like the easiest W of our lives. Then the brown alpha charged straight through our arrow storm, like it was just light drizzle, and slammed into our front line. This beast was an absolute tank, but Lin 3 intercepted it, swords sparking viciously against claws, and the close quarters nightmare officially began. Wolves and soldiers tangled together in a chaotic blur through the trees, crossbowmen frantically scrambling backward, and militia stabbing wildly at anything with fur. Archers were taking risky, high-stakes point-blank shots, when one of my militia guys speared a wolf dead center with his brand-new iron-tipped lance. Insane kill, but the wolf's sheer momentum knocked him flat on his back and ripped his arm wide open to the bone. Our very first real casualty as the medic dragged him away, while everyone else fought furiously around them. We pulled off the W eventually. The brown alpha took a heavy iron spear straight to the gut and limped away howling in agony. The remaining wolves shattered and scattered, and right by the water pools near the mine, my soldiers scored for sparkling water essence crystals. That is 4 massive steps closer to sending Lin back home to Earth. Grab the loot and run, except we didn't run nearly fast enough. Whoa, that howl. That roar hit us like an actual physical shockwave, a tidal wave of pure rage and bloodlust that violently shook the trees and made the livestream broadcast glitch out. Every single soldier froze mid-step, their faces draining white even through the digital screen. 1 billion live viewers instantly felt their legs go weak. The Silver Wolf King was on the move, and he was out for absolute blood. Fall back right now. Move, move, move. Lin 3 squad snatched up the glowing crystals, grabbed the wounded soldiers, and sprinted hard for the safety of the river behind them. The ground was literally shaking beneath our feet, as dozens of massive wolves exploded out of the dense forest, like a terrifying furry tsunami. And right there, dead center in the middle of the stampede, I finally laid eyes on the nightmare myself. The Wolf King, easily as massive as a young bull, his silver fur gleaming viciously like moonlight slicing across a blade, his eyes burning a terrifying crimson red, and moving with the bone-chilling, casual confidence of an apex predator that has never, ever lost a fight. It was honestly the most breathtakingly terrifying thing I'd ever laid eyes on, and it was staring right back at me, right across the river, cutting through the chaos, past all the retreating soldiers. It locked onto my soul. There I stood, perched on my tiny stone wall, and we had a total standoff, just him and me. The literal Wolf King versus a chronically unemployed college grad. For one frozen second, the whole world held its breath, watching 2 rival masterminds size each other up across enemy lines. Though, let's be real, the wolf looked thoroughly unimpressed. Squad 3 slammed right into the freezing river, packs of wolves hot on their heels, stopping dead at the water's edge. The rushing current and my heavy wall-mounted crossbows made those beasts hesitate. My troops stumbled through the gates, battered and bleeding, gasping for air while carrying their wounded comrades. I immediately did a head count. 24 came back. 26 went out. 2 didn't make the cut. Just 2 young militia kids, full of nervous life just that morning over breakfast, now gone forever. I barely even knew their names, and that gutted me the most. Yet they bought us the crystals we desperately needed. The literal keys to saving our entire country, securing fresh oases for a thirsty population of 14 billion people. Suddenly, the Wolf King unleashed one final, spine-chilling, earth-shaking howl. Not a sign of defeat, but a terrifying promise. Then he vanished into the deep timber with his entire pack. Back online, the Chinese internet was exploding with a massive storm of grief and fierce pride. Those fallen soldiers were true heroes, and the crystals were well worth the price. But what about the Wolf King? What happens now? You want to know what happens now? I'll tell you. I'm standing on a rampart with fresh blood staining my boots, for glowing crystals burning a hole in my pocket, a heavily battered army at my back, and the absolute most dangerous apex predator on the continent, gearing up to bring his entire wrath down squarely on my head. Sure, the raid was a total win, but this war just got 10 times deadlier. And that silver monster, he now had a deeply personal score to settle with the guy on the wall. Me. Dawn finally broke, though the metallic stench of carnage hung heavy in the air. 24 broken soldiers limped through my fortress gates. 2 didn't. I stood silently on the wall, watching them drag themselves in. Half of them dripping blood, all of them completely drained. Yet every single one of them was a legend. Honor the fallen, patch up the wounded, and ensure everyone who threw hands today gets the highest military commendation. Thank you, my lord. They roared it out with bloodshot eyes and shattered voices. These weren't just standard game NPCs to me anymore. These were my people. Lin 3 handed me 4 glowing blue crystals with his good arm, while the other was wrapped in bloody bandages. Mission complete, my lord. The man had just brawled a wolf alpha in close combat, spearheaded a retreat away from 50 wolves, and was reporting back to me, like he casually came back from grocery shopping. Absolute legend. I ordered everyone to get some rest, and immediately marched over to the stone tablet, because those 2 soldiers didn't give up their lives, so I could sit around feeling sorry for myself. They died so I could make things happen. 4 water essence crystals slotted straight into the tablet. The entire room flashed electric blue, cool mist rolling everywhere, like standing right inside a living cloud of pure hope. The system initiated a scan. 0.5 square kilometers of river and wetland. Eligible for transfer. Then the multiplier will start spinning. Every single person on Earth leaned hard toward their screens.
Chinese chat spamming Andred.
100. Like a high-stakes casino. The Grand Elder was probably pulverizing his armrests. The final number locked in at 68. 68 times half a square kilometer equals 34. Square kilometers of freshwater rivers, lakes and wetlands, with schools of fish being teleported straight into the driest, most dead zone of northwestern China. The massive blue beam erupting from my stone tablet made the first materialization look like a tiny pocket flashlight. I could literally feel the river next to my base drop by a fraction, as the fabric of reality itself was copy-pasted across dimensions. Back on Earth, right in the middle of a cracked, barren wasteland, a massive river materialized out of thin air, hundreds of meters wide, crystal clear, surging into a brand new lake, instantly surrounded by lush reeds and marshland. Top scientists at the monitoring station were literally sobbing and hugging each other. Live satellite feeds showed fish leaping out of water that hadn't even existed 5 minutes ago. Life-giving water on a planet dying of extreme thirst. A staggering 34 square kilometers of pure liquid survival. While the global system announcement echoed 3 times, China's representative Lin Tian just materialized. A massive 34 square kilometers of fresh water. China's reaction was completely off the charts. People weeping in the streets, screaming at giant screens, and the live broadcast host totally losing his voice. Water? Actual water. Meanwhile, the rest of the world speedrun through the 5 stages of grief. In about 30 flat seconds, America's live chat, stunned, dead silence, followed by pure rage. Japan's swordmaster was still doing waterfall meditation. Kinda ironic since I literally just created a whole waterfall. India's representative was apparently busy, brawling wild monkeys over bananas. France's chat was just wall-to-wall prayers, desperate prayers from a country on its absolute last leg. The first time they called it pure luck. The second time they called it a weird pattern. Now, every single government on Earth is holding emergency briefings over this Chinese college dropout, who keeps conjuring prime real estate out of thin air. 0 time to celebrate, though. I instantly trained 4 more crossbowmen to beef up the militia, and ordered the blacksmith to mass-produce heavy iron gear. My army surged back to 46 elite fighters, way stronger than before the raid. 16 dedicated crossbowmen locked and loaded. I wanted so much suffocating ranged firepower that the Wolf King would crash into a literal wall of iron bolts, long before he got within howling distance. Morning farms dropped off for 180 food units right on schedule. The grind never stops. Then I summoned my inner war council. Lin 3, Hawkeye, Ironstring, and our new militia captain, Stoneshield. The Wolf King is coming, I told them flatly. No more probing attacks, no random raids. He's bringing his entire force. And we aren't just sitting behind these walls, hoping and praying they hold. I slammed my finger onto the map. Traps, layered defensive lines, kill zones, and most importantly, I locked eyes with Lin 3's battle-scarred face. I need a dedicated hit squad, your absolute best, fastest, toughest, most unhinged killers. You have one single mission. Hunt down the Silver Wolf King in the middle of total chaos. And put him down for good. Lin 3's eyes blazed to life, like somebody just dumped gasoline straight onto a bonfire. The Wolf Hunter Squad, he whispered under his breath, already mentally drafting the roster. Consider it done, my lord. Somewhere across that river, a silver wolf was gathering his army for the final assault. And here I was gathering mine. 2 soldiers paid for these crystals with their lives. A nation of 14 billion people was drinking clean water because of their sacrifice. And I was going to make sure it meant something. by surviving long enough to send more. The final battle was coming. And this time only one king was walking away from it. Another morning on the wall. My morning routine now: wake up. Don't die, count soldiers, stare at numbers. Panic quietly, 47 fighters. Resources looking healthy. 1,375 food. 565 wood, 497 stone. 50 iron. The farms delivered their morning. 480 food like clockwork. Lin 2's agricultural machine was the one thing in my life that never disappointed me. I was about to order more crossbowmen, because my solution to every problem is now add more crossbows, when something weird happened. A strange feeling hit me, like someone plucked a guitar string inside my chest. Not painful, not the system talking. Just a vibration, a cosmic. Something just happened somewhere. Notification that I couldn't explain. I shrugged it off, probably indigestion from stress. Ordered 4 more crossbowmen anyway, because 20 crossbows is good. But 20 is better. Wait. That's the same number, whatever. More crossbows, always more crossbows. Then I went to check on Lin 3's wolf hunter squad. 8 absolute psychopaths, who'd volunteered to do the most suicidal job imaginable. Charge into a sea of wolves during the final battle. And personally assassinate the Silver Wolf King. They were beating the hell out of each other. In a corner of the base. Practicing combat moves with blunt weapons. That still sounded like they hurt a lot. Lin 3 was in the middle of it, with his arms still bandaged, correcting people's stances between getting hit. How's it looking? I asked. The fighting spirit is there, my lord. Taking down a wolf king, surrounded by 50 absolute beasts, demands flawless synergy. And honestly, a whole lot of sheer luck. What he was really saying was, we're probably gonna die, but we're diving in headfirst anyway. I told him to bring every last man back alive, though we both knew it was more of a prayer than an order. That uneasy gut feeling from this morning finally clicked, when the global system broadcast dropped like a nuke. Lighthouse Nation Representative Smith just pulled off the impossible, materializing 8 square kilometers of pure saltpeter deposits straight onto Blue Star. America actually pulled it off. They locked down their crystal and materialized actual land. 8 square kilometers of high-grade saltpeter. Sure, it's nowhere near my 21 square kilometers of forest, or 34 of water, but strategically, that's massive. Just like that, this survival game went full multiplayer. My soldiers caught wind of the announcement, and murmurs broke out. I could see it straight in their eyes. Self-doubt, creeping anxiety. That burning competitive drive, but I didn't utter a peep. Not a single word. I just turned to the blacksmith and barked. Faster. Sharper. Because here's the harsh reality about everyone else flexing. It doesn't change the fact that 50 bloodthirsty wolves, led by a tactical genius, are camped out right across my river right now, actively plotting to eat me. America's shiny saltpeter isn't helping me sleep tonight. Japan's sword meditations won't deflect razor-sharp fangs. The only thing that matters right now is right here, in this valley, on this wall, with these exact soldiers. I immediately dropped a second barracks, because one single barracks, pumping out troops, just isn't cutting it. When you're bracing for absolute Armageddon, 2 barracks means double-time troop production. Basic math is officially my love language now. Night fell like a curtain, and the howling began. And I don't mean your casual, everyday atmospheric howling. This was bone-chilling, angry, coordinated, building up to a terrifying crescendo. Way more throats than before, way closer than before. The Silver Wolf King was mustering his entire damn army. And listening to it felt like tuning into the live broadcast of your own funeral being planned. I instantly doubled the night watch. Ordered the elite wolf hunters to sleep locked in full gear. Weapons clutched in hand. Every single torch blazing bright. Every single crossbow locked and loaded. All eyes glued to that pitch-black tree line across the river. America scooped up their 8 square kilometers today. Good for them, but tomorrow? I might not even have a territory left. If these wolves managed to smash through. Those demonic wolf howls just kept scaling, stacking right on top of each other, choking the valley with a terrifying promise of bloodshed. I gripped the freezing stone battlement and whispered into the void. Bring it on, day 7. My daily food tab just skyrocketed to 138 units. Just to keep this entire squad breathing. 47 soldiers and 35 farmers can seriously put it away. But the second I pulled up the overnight resource report, I practically did a victory jig right there on the wall. Max capacity production cranking across every single facility. 1,200 wood, 600 stone locked in. 1,680 food rolling off 14 farms like absolute clockwork. Combine that with what I was already hoarding. 3,397 food. 1,505 wood. 997 stone. And 55 iron. Man, I was loaded. Filthily, disgustingly, ridiculously rich. Just a week ago, I was literally sucking nutrient paste from a tube and weeping over a sad cabbage. Now I'm sitting on a literal mountain of supplies. That would make actual medieval emperors green with envy. Running 2 barracks simultaneously meant I could churn out troops at breakneck double speed. 8 elite crossbowmen? Boom. For hardcore militia units? Boom. Watching those resources evaporate from my balance. Like confetti at a championship parade. Nearly 500 food and 400 wood gone in 2 clicks. And honestly, I didn't even flinch. Oh yeah, this is what pure financial dominance feels like. My heavy crossbow division was evolving into a genuine nightmare. 20 rapid-fire bolt throwers backed by 8 veteran archers. A legendary swordsman and over 20 frontline spearmen. The Wolf King is about to step straight into an absolute hurricane of iron. Then the global system alert flashed and my smirk vanished instantly. Japan Representative Ito, yeah, Ito is officially confirmed dead. Japan's remaining player slots dropped to 2 out of 3. The legendary sword master, the guy everyone hyped up as untouchable. The lone wolf, who figured raw personal skill could hard carry everything. Here is exactly how it went down. Ito watched me expand my territory twice and green-eyed panic took over. He stumbled upon a glowing pool radiating pure energy, got totally hyped and dove in blade first, completely neglecting to check what else inhabited those waters. Turns out, a colossal, mutated nightmare squid was lurking in the abyss, sporting massive tentacles dripping with suction cups and acid. Ito was insane, slicing through 2 tentacles midair, with lightning-fast reflexes, but you can't outmatch sheer physics. A brutal tentacle locked around his waist and crushed him, another pinned his dominant sword arm, and more coiled around him like living iron chains. The absolute peak swordsman of the tournament got dragged straight to the depths by a blindside monster, his final breath a muffled curse before bursting into bubbles. And then absolute nothingness. Japan's internet crashed into total, stunned grief. No way. What even was that thing? Their analysts had spent days preaching that a single overpowered hero was all you needed. Now their golden boy was fish food at the bottom of a ditch, and his legendary blade was reduced to monster chew toys. Did I feel bad? Yeah, kinda actually. Sure, the guy was a massive ego and his fanbase was insufferable. But getting choked out by tentacles in a dark pool all alone? Nobody deserves that fate. Rest in peace. Sword bro, you were dead wrong about everything, but your blade work was undeniably gorgeous. Chinese chat rooms dropped the most mature take of the entire week. Lone wolf heroism doesn't cut it anymore. You need collective resources, military muscle, and advanced tech. You need the whole package. For once, nobody was flexing or gloating, just sobering up to the harsh truth that this world slaughters everyone equally. The strong, the brilliant, the lucky, and the doomed. I immediately weaponized that tragedy to fuel my grind, ramping up training intensity and double-checking every single perimeter wall for the final showdown. Because here is what genuinely terrified me. Across the river, the deep forest went dead silent. No howling, no chirping. Zero movement after days of escalating, aggressive wolf hostility. Suddenly, absolute quiet, and that eerie hush screamed louder than any battle cry. The Wolf King was done posturing, done sending threats, and done broadcasting his moves. He was officially done talking. The next sound erupting from those tree lines would be an army of 50 wolves, slamming straight into my defenses, with the Silver King himself leading the charge. I stood on my wall staring at that dead-silent tree line, resources funneling straight into recruits behind me. The blacksmith hammering iron like his life depended on it. Because spoiler alert, it totally did while I thought of a swordmaster, who truly believed he was invincible, right up until reality violently called his bluff. Newsflash, nobody is untouchable, not him. Not the Wolf King, and honestly not even me. Japan's top-tier swordmaster biting the dust was low-key the best thing to ever happen. To my survival meta, not because I'm totally heartless. Okay, fine, maybe just a little bit. But mostly because it finally shut up. Every single keyboard warrior who kept spamming. Bro, just grind solo stats, bro, total one-man army, bro. Who even needs supply chains, bro? when the universe literally fed the server's strongest lone wolf straight to a tentacle monster. Lesson learned: my strategy was the absolute opposite of stylish. The opposite of heroic, the most brutally boring, unsexy, corporate accountant-approved approach to warfare ever conceived. Build everything, max out everyone. Hoard resources until your storage sheds scream for mercy. And then handle business day 7's inventory check. Had me feeling like I just successfully looted Fort Knox. Food sitting pretty at 3,739 post-morning harvest. Wood at 1,505 stone at 997 iron skyrocketing. My 14 farms were literally printing food like a corrupt government. Cranking out cash during a financial panic. 3 magic words: certified agricultural powerhouse. And what did I do with all that insane generational wealth? I became the world's most unhinged military recruiter. 8 crossbowmen for 480 food. And 320 wood completely wiped out. For militia for 200 food. And 80 wood gone. 8 more crossbowmen. Another 480 food and 320 wood vanished. For more militia for 200 food. And 80 wood gone. I was drafting battalions. Like a sleep-deprived college student ordering DoorDash at 3 a.m. Yeah, let me get a crossbowman combo. Actually make it 16 and throw in a side of militia. You know what, screw it, keep the queue rolling. My roster officially hit 74 elite units. 1 badass swordsman, 29 spear throwers. 8 archers and a staggering 36 crossbowmen. Let that sink in. 36. I had more heavy-duty firepower than actual modern militia squads. My overarching combat philosophy had officially evolved into, if it moves and it's not ours, turn it into a walking pincushion with a volley of bolts. But I wasn't done yet, and the resources were still rolling in, so I went completely full infrastructure mode. 6 brand new farms because an army marches on its stomach. And my army's appetite was getting massive. A 3rd lumber camp, a 3rd stone quarry, every single order sparking another flash of light. Out across my base. As whole buildings materialized straight out of thin air. By noon, my territory legitimately looked like a thriving civilization. Stone walls, heavy arrow towers, 3 barracks, 3 lumber camps, 3 quarries, 20 thriving farm plots, a blacksmith's forge churning out smoke, and troops drilling everywhere you looked. Just a week ago, this was a desolate hillside where I stood totally alone, wondering if a stray wolf would eat me before starvation did. The afternoon was locked in for training, not spending Lin. Squad 3 ran brutal assassination drills all afternoon long. 8 elite guys, mastering how to slice through a sea of ravenous beasts, and single out one specific silver target. The practice wolves were played by our own vanguard troops, who walked away with swollen eyes and deeply bruised ribs. Hey, teamwork makes the dream work. It also makes the bruises work. The evening harvest brought in a massive 720 food from the new farms. The 3 lumber camps pumped out a clean 900 wood, and the 3 quarries delivered 450 stone. The final numbers at sundown: food, 3,099, wood, 1,465, stone, 1,267 iron, 6,574 soldiers armed straight to the teeth, 20 farms feeding a powerhouse of an army, and 9 resource facilities running at maximum absolute capacity. I had done literally everything humanly possible. Every single resource spent with maximum efficiency, every soldier drilled to perfection, every single wall reinforced, and every trap locked and loaded. The wolf hunter squad was sharp, lethal, and ready to roll. The crossbow line was stacked deep enough to completely blot out the sky with projectiles, and every spearman's polearm flashed with a fresh iron tip. Night crashed down and I immediately tripled the watch. The dark forest across the river was dead silent. For the 2nd night in a row. 0 howls, 0 movement, absolute dead air. That suffocating quiet was terrifying. I scaled the barricade one last time, tightened my grip on my iron spear, and stared straight into the pitch black where I just knew. Hundreds of vicious green eyes were glaring back. Bring it on, I whispered into the dark. I've been ready since yesterday. You're the ones running late. Somewhere out there in the shadows, a silver wolf breathed, waited, and picked his moment. The final showdown wasn't tomorrow, and it wasn't next week. It was tonight. I could feel it in my bones. The night before the end of the world. And naturally, I did what any rational gamer would do. I went on a massive shopping spree. Resources on the table. 3,099 food, 1,465 wood, 1,267 stone, and 65 iron. The exact kind of numbers that make you feel totally invincible and drive you to do aggressively stupid, heroic things like upgrading your whole civilization, while an army of bloodthirsty wolves sharpens its fangs. Right across the river. Upgrade to level 3 large village, 1,000 food, 800 wood, 400 stone, and 50 iron vanished instantly. My resource panel looked like it just got mugged in an alley, but the blinding glow that engulfed my territory was worth every single unit. The entire base started humming like a living organism, gearing up to evolve. 8 hours until transformation. 8 hours until I evolved into something the Wolf King completely failed to plan for. While the upgrade cooked, I drafted 16 more farmers, because empty buildings are just glorified lawn ornaments. 20 farms now, 3 lumber camps, 3 quarries, and 51 farmers. Grinding away like the most hyper-focused ant colony alive. My food production was so insanely high, I could feed an entire city block, and still have leftovers. Then, the final wave of recruits marched out of my twin barracks, and I tallied my forces one last time. 86 combat-ready fighters, 1 legendary swordsman, 33 spearmen, 8 archers, and 44 crossbowmen. A squad of 44 mechanical death dealers, ready to turn any charging beast into Swiss cheese in seconds. Basically a total pincushion. A week ago, I fought 2 wolves with a sharpened stick, and almost flatlined. Now I command a lethal squad with specialized units, iron gear, and fully researched combat buffs. The Chinese netizen community was losing its absolute mind. He's hitting level 3 with 44 heavy crossbows. That's not an army, bro, that's an execution squad. Meanwhile, America's Green Beret was quietly licking his wounds. After a brutal monster raid, falling way behind. Russia was still trudging through deep snow, hunting for crystals while the power gap grew humiliating. For literally anyone who wasn't me, those 8 hours crawled by like 8 agonizing years. I paced around checking the fortification walls, counted crossbow bolts twice, and reorganized supply crates. I actually considered taking up meditation, like that dead swordsman guy, and immediately nuked that stupid idea. Then right as dawn broke, boom, the territory upgrade finished. Pure energy slammed through every single stone, every single building, and every person in my zone. The perimeter walls shot up taller and thicker automatically, gleaming like reinforced steel. The main plaza literally doubled in footprint. Every single soldier felt the stat boost course through them. Faster reflexes, insane muscle density, sharper killer instincts, and even I felt the buzz. My toothpick frame was upgraded into at least a slightly beefier toothpick frame. Massive progress, brand new tech tree unlocked. Advanced barracks, cavalry stables, heavy watchtowers, and a functional marketplace. I couldn't afford to build any of it yet, but just knowing it was available made my inner gamer spirit vibrate with pure joy. For precisely 4 seconds I felt like an invincible god. Then the Wolf King brutally crashed my celebration. A woo, not just a normal howl. A straight-up declaration of total war that shook the earth. Flocks of birds scattered from every tree in the valley. The roar was so deafeningly loud, so overflowing with pure rage and malicious intent, that it physically punched me in the chest. And then I spotted them, glowing green eyes. Hundreds of wicked green eyes, flooding out of the tree line like a shattered dam. Not 30 wolves, not 50, hundreds. A living tsunami of fur and fangs, surging toward the river. LED straight by the colossal silver Wolf King, massive as a bull and pale as death, with eyes burning pure blood red, moving with the absolute certainty of a beast that already knew I was dead meat. Every single horror movie, every nightmare, every terror I'd ever faced. None of it even compared to watching that rolling wave crash toward my walls. I yanked my blade, the iron catching the first sharp light of dawn, and flashing it right back at the king. Across the river, listen up, battle stations. All 86 soldiers locked in as one. Crossbows primed and spears locked tight. Arrows nocked and stone barricades braced. Our entire territory flipped from a sleepy village into a fortress. In the span of 3 heartbeats. This was it. No more farming sims. No more building, no more crunching resources. No more watching numbers tick up. Just me, my crew, and an ocean of bloodthirsty wolves, here to wipe out everything we built. 1 week of pure sweat terror energy drinks. survival rations and epic math blunders. All boiling down to this exact second. On top of a stone rampart at dawn. Sword raised against a literal silver god of war. Let's go, they hit like a tidal wave. If that wave was built from pure razor fangs. Hundreds, not 50. Not even 100. Hundreds of elite beasts erupting from the treeline. Choking the river and turning the water black. The earth literally shook beneath my boots. My heavy stone wall vibrating under my feet. And the terrifying roar of 1,000 wolves howling as one. Is a sound burned into my brain forever. Across every lifetime I'll ever live. Hold steady, wait for my mark. 44 deadly crossbows aimed at the river. 44 pairs of hands locked rock solid. 44 triggers waiting for one single word. The front line slammed into the water. Packs of glowing green eyes sprinting right at us. Through the spray unleash hell. 44 crossbows let loose in unison. And the roar hit like thunder. An iron wall of bolts smashed straight into the wolf vanguard, wiping them out completely as dozens dropped dead on impact, crashing down into the river, and turning the water crimson in seconds. That level 3 upgrade had turned my crossbowmen into absolute killing machines. Faster reloads, devastating. Impact. With bolts tearing through thick wolf hide like wet tissue paper. But it didn't matter, more wolves just kept coming. They trampled over their fallen packmates like living bridges, charging right through the arrow storm, with zero fear and absolute bloodlust. The river devolved into a thick soup of blood and fur, yet they never stopped pressing forward. Archers locked down the rear, while crossbowmen pivoted to target wall climbers. They slammed into the barricade, hundreds of beasts crashing against solid stone, like a relentless, unending multi-car pileup. Claws screeched, heavy bodies thudded, and the biggest beasts were literally leaping to claw their way over the top. Thank God my upgraded fortifications held. Building stone instead of sticking with that flimsy fence saved us. Still, the bone-shaking vibrations were terrifying. Spears. Stab everything that moves. 32 iron-tipped spears thrust over the ramparts. In perfect synchronization. Wolves trying to leap got skewered straight out of midair. And climbers were violently shoved off the stonework. Carcasses piled up so high at the base that the next wave of attackers was literally scrambling up a ramp built from their dead. This madness dragged on for 30 minutes. Half an hour of uninterrupted slaughter. My soldiers' arms were burning, sweat pouring down their faces, with a few unlucky guys getting mauled for leaning over too far. Fresh troops rotated in, but crossbow ammo was dangerously low. The walls were holding, but my people were hitting their absolute limit. Then the Wolf King made his move. He let out a single, sharp, piercing howl, and his 12 elite guard beasts shot off in every direction, like a pack of guided missiles. Absolute units way bigger and faster than anything we'd ever faced. All swarming different wall sections at the exact same time. Divide and conquer, total chaos, and the Wolf King himself didn't even charge the main gate. He sprinted straight down the riverbank toward our weakest flank. The absolute mastermind was trying to outflank us, while his elite guards caused absolute mayhem up front. Wolf hunters, he's flanking, go intercept right now. Lin 3 didn't even hesitate for a second. He vaulted off the wall, a sheer 3-meter drop straight down. Hit the turf rolling hard with his blade already drawn. 7 squad members hurled themselves right after him, acting like the craziest paratroopers in existence. Landing with a bone-jarring thud and sprinting to block that silver blur. All ranged units provide covering fire for the hunters. Suppress those elites, arrows and heavy bolts instantly shifting targets. Slamming into the elite wolves trying to give chase. Buying Lin 3's squad some desperately needed breathing room. Lin 3 crashed into the Wolf King at max velocity. His sword flashing upward from the low angle. Dead set on a brutal belly slash, a finishing blow. But the Wolf King was way too fast. It violently twisted midair, dodging the edge by a hair's breadth, and whipped its massive tail like a steel cable, straight into Lin 3's defense. The brutal impact sent him skidding backward, coughing up blood as 3 crossbow bolts from the squad screamed directly at the Wolf King's face. It deflected 2 with its skull and completely ducked the 3rd, which just nicked its neck, drawing the very first blood. And that only pissed it off more. It lunged viciously at the nearest crossbowman. Your fight is with me, Lin 3 roared, throwing himself back into the fray. Sword blazing, refusing to let it touch anyone else. Steel and razor-sharp claws clashed over and over. sparks flying everywhere, blood from both sides painting the dirt. But the Wolf King was just built different. Too strong, too fast, way too tough. The hunters swarmed it from every imaginable angle with spears, heavy bolts and sharp blades, only managing to leave pathetic surface scratches. Meanwhile, it was absolutely wrecking them. One poor guy got swatted into a massive tree so hard, I could hear his ribs snap all the way from the wall. Another took a savage claw strike across the chest. Lin 3 was down on one knee, completely spent, as the Wolf King parted its monstrous, blood-soaked jaws. To deliver the final bite, I snatched a heavy, repeating crossbow from the soldier beside me, locked dead onto that gaping maw and pulled the trigger. The bolt completely missed its mouth. The Wolf King snapped its jaws shut and violently twisted, but the heavy projectile buried itself deep into its neck, almost punching straight through. Oh damn! The Wolf King let out a blood-curdling scream. Not a roar of raw power, but a shrieking cry of pure agony. Its massive body completely locked up for a single heartbeat. And one heartbeat was all Lin 3 needed. He launched off the ground like a human missile, gripped his sword with both bloody hands, and slammed it right into the wound the bolt had carved, driving it straight down until the entire hilt vanished. The silver beast glared down at Lin 3, with those crimson eyes. I swear I saw total disbelief in them, then blinding rage and then absolute nothingness. The light vanished from its eyes as its colossal silver frame crashed to the earth like a crumbling tower, making the ground shudder one final, heavy time. The king was dead, and instantly, every single wolf on the field stopped. They froze in place, staring at their fallen god, before one let out a wail. Not of anger, but of broken, helpless terror. The entire enemy army shattered. Hundreds of wolves turned tail and bolted, tucked between their legs and whimpering miserably, trampling each other just to get away. In barely 60 seconds, the battlefield went from an absolute apocalypse to dead silence. My soldiers stood frozen on the blood-soaked ramparts, staring down at the insane carnage below, and for a long, heavy moment, nobody dared breathe. Then, someone shrieked, "We won!" And the wall erupted. 86 surviving voices, minus the brave ones who would never speak again, screaming victory straight up into the dawn sky, weeping, hugging each other, collapsing from sheer exhaustion, and laughing hysterically. Honestly, I was doing all of those things at the exact same time. Down below, Lin 3 stood over the Wolf King's carcass, drenched head to toe in blood, mostly not even his own, leaning heavily on his blade, because his battered legs simply gave out. The hunters around him were absolute wrecks, covered in broken bones and gaping gashes, barely managing to stay upright. I swept my gaze across the field. Monster corpses were scattered everywhere, piled high against my walls, floating in crimson streams of gore, and littering the open ground. I'd won. We'd actually won. But down in the dirt, far too many of my people lay completely still. Some of them were never getting back up. I gripped the wall, and finally exhaled a breath I'd been holding for a week. War is paid for in blood, and winning doesn't change the price. It just decides who's left standing to pay it. We were still standing, barely, bloodied, broken in a few places, but standing. The cheering lasted a solid 5 minutes, before I snapped straight back into boss mode. Victory is great, but victory you don't capitalize on is wasted. Medics, patch everyone up. Drag every last wolf carcass inside the walls. Ranged units, stay sharp and watch for stragglers. First stop, Lin 3, my absolute unit of a swordsman, was standing over the Wolf King's corpse, leaning on his blade like a bloody cane, breathing like a broken accordion. His left shoulder had a claw wound so viciously deep, I could practically see his skeleton waving at me. But his eyes were blazing, more alive than I'd ever seen them. "How are you feeling?" I asked, trying hard not to stare at his exposed shoulder bone. Something inside him broke through. My lord! Then the system dropped. The most insanely gorgeous notification I'd ever laid eyes on. Unit Lin 3 has transcended mortal limits. Promoted to Warrior General. Current rank, 3rd tier. Holy crap, Lin 3 had literally evolved. Just from slaying the Wolf King. He'd unlocked an ability called Chief Force, some kind of internal energy that supercharged his attack, bolstered his defense, and made nearby troops fight twice as hard. He went from being a really good soldier to an actual fantasy. Wuxia powerhouse in a single boss fight. Starting today, you're my first general. I announced dramatically. He dropped instantly to one knee. Your general accepts. His voice hit totally different now. Deeper, heavier, like his words suddenly had muscle behind them. And then came the loot. Oh, sweet baby RNG. The loot. My farmers swarmed the battlefield to butcher the carcasses. And the resource notifications went completely berserk. 2,850 units of wolf meat. 103 pristine wolf pelts. 210 bones. 415 fangs. And the crown jewels. The silver wolf king's hide rated outstanding. 2 king fangs rated superior. And 1 vial of wolf king's essence blood rated rare. I went from dead broke on resources to swimming in monster loot, like a deranged Scrooge McDuck. The meat alone completely solved my food crisis for weeks. The pelts were ready for armor. The bones and fangs locked in as crafting materials. And the king tier drops? Those were straight-up endgame treasures. With resources flooding my inventory, I triggered the most satisfying upgrade spree of my entire career. Every single basic soldier walked into the barracks as a chump with a pointy stick, and walked back out as an absolute unit. 20 regular militia evolved into heavy halberdiers. Long-reach weapons, heavy armor. Insane piercing power built for holding the line and crushing any push in tight formation. 12 militia transitioned into sword and shield warriors. Towering shields, razor-sharp blades. Engineered for brutal frontline brawls and elite bodyguard duty. The class evolution was insane. Watching 32 scruffy infantrymen step into glowing barracks and emerge looking like ruthless, medieval juggernauts. Felt straight out of a cinematic hype montage. Except this was real life and happening right inside my fortress. My army roster now read like an elite military dispatch. 1 Tier 3 warrior general. 20 halberdiers, 12 sword and shield fighters. 8 archers, 44 crossbowmen. 85 absolute combat monsters backed by top-tier gear. Upgraded armor upgraded. Everything sure. My gold reserves tanked into the negative. Did I care? Not even a fraction of a percent. My 3 lumber camps would easily bounce that back by tomorrow. 20 active farms were pumping out food. 3 stone quarries were working overtime. 51 dedicated workers, keeping this entire economic engine humming like a high-end medieval powerhouse. As the sun dipped and bathed my territory in a golden glow, I watched our fallen soldiers get laid to rest, with full military honors, their names permanently etched into stone near the town square. They earned every bit of that respect. I stood tall on my ramparts, my glorious blood-stained walls, unbroken wall, and surveyed a valley that was finally, completely, undeniably mine. No more goblins, no more wolf king, no more threats I couldn't crush. A week ago I was just a jobless college grad, stressing over cabbages. Now I had a general, an army, a fortress, and an entire nation banking on my wins. Every single ray of that sunset felt totally earned. The Wolf King was dead, his pack was gone, and my territory was booming, like a tech startup fresh off infinite funding. Level 3 village buffs were going off everywhere. Faster resource gathering, speedrun training, even the air hit different. Life was good, life was insanely good. First order of business. The Wolf King's blood. Not regular blood, straight-up magic blood. A vial of concentrated life force locked in crystal. Pulsing with so much raw power. I could feel it straight through the glass. This isn't something you waste on a building or a weapon. This was a tribute for the absolute legend who stabbed a wolf god straight through the neck. Lin 3. You flat out slayed the king. This is yours. The look on his face was like a kid unboxing a puppy on Christmas. Except the puppy was a vial of demon monster blood. And the kid was a battle-scarred veteran general. Wrapped in bandages, he dropped to one knee, cradling it like the Holy Grail itself, before locking himself away to absorb it. Meanwhile, my economy was going absolutely berserk. 2,850 units of premium wolf meat. Meaning my entire populace was set for weeks. 0 farming required. Wolf pelts became heavy armor, while bones and fangs turned into top-tier gear. My freshly upgraded elites. 20 halberdiers wielding armor-shredding polearms. 12 sword and shield juggernauts built like brick walls. Were repping drills in formation, looking like they stepped straight out of an epic war movie. On the global stage, the reactions were priceless. America's Green Beret finally scraped up a pathetic copper vein, and was acting like he'd struck El Dorado. Japan's stream was just plain depressing. Endless highlight reels of their dead sword master. Russia's colonel soloed a random giant bear, which was pretty insane, even if it didn't actually stretch his borders. Everyone was falling behind and they totally knew it. Until Korea dropped a worldwide broadcast announcement, and I had to read the alert 3 times, just to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. Korea representative has activated ancestral kimchi jar. Replica and materialized 0.5 square kilometers of salt. Alkaline soil packed with special lactic acid bacteria. Half a square kilometer of pickled dirt with bacteria. I materialized an entire river and a lush forest. An oasis that literally saved a whole nation. And Korea materialized a glorified pickle farm. Their chat room went through Olympic-level mental gymnastics. This is a total cultural victory. Kimchi is a world treasure. Even interdimensional laws completely respect our cuisine. Meanwhile, every other country's chat was just keyboard spamming. With absolute laughter until someone typed, "Huge congrats on your half-kilometer pickle patch." And I genuinely almost choked on my own spit. Look, major respect for getting any land materialized at all, since that's way more than most countries managed. But the item was literally called ancestral kimchi jar. I honestly can't make this stuff up. The universe clearly has a sick sense of humor. And Korea was the main punchline. Then my communicator suddenly lit up with the national emblem, and the Grand Elder's voice echoed straight inside my head. It was our weekly 5-minute phone call, the single most critical conversation in all of Chinese. National security, Lin Tian. On behalf of the entire nation and all its people, thank you. The oasis and the water system you built are already being studied as we speak. The soil quality is insanely fertile, and the water contains completely unknown algae, with God-tier purification capabilities. You've actually given us hope. Not gonna lie, hearing that from the most powerful person in China, while standing inside a blood-soaked, medieval town hall on a totally alien planet, made me feel emotions I didn't even know an unemployed college grad was capable of feeling. His advice was rock solid. Raid the Wolf King's den to score hidden resources, and help Lin 3 level up his chi energy. Using ancient breathing techniques straight out of old texts. Those 5 minutes flew by and the call cut off. Right after that, Lin 3's door blew wide open, and I mean that metaphorically, but the sheer energy shockwave blasting out of his room rattled every single window in the entire building. He stepped out looking like an entirely different beast. His crushing presence weighed down the room like heavy gravity. His eyes were practically blazing, and the system locked it in. Lin 3 promoted to second-tier warrior general. Brand new combat skill unlocked. Earth-splitting / tier 2. That Wolf King's blood just vaulted him up an entire rank. He went from a seriously strong guy to a one-man army capable of shattering the earth with a swing. He told me he felt like he could take on 3 of his old selves at the exact same time, and honestly, I bought it. The dude was radiating raw danger, like an industrial space heater on full blast. My liege, I request permission to spearhead the expedition to the Wolf King's den. I looked at my general battle-hardened, blood-infused, chi-channeled, and grinning like a hyped kid, about to rip open the biggest gift under the Christmas tree. I checked out my forces, 85 absolute elite soldiers, clutching upgraded gear with morale through the roof. I surveyed my territory, a triple-layered fortress backed by stone walls, defensive towers, 20 farms, and resources flowing like cash. Permission granted, take today to rest. Tomorrow at dawn we raid the wolf's den, and see what kind of loot that silver freak was hoarding. Somewhere up in heaven. The original owner of this body was probably watching me, commanding armies and conquering entire regions, while scratching his head wondering why I couldn't have put this exact same hustle into his corporate job applications. Rest day lasted just long enough for Lin 3 to stop leaking blood, before I launched him straight back into the meat grinder. Because hey, that is peak leadership right there. Handing your top operator 1 single day off, right before sending him back into a dead Wolf King's lair. Definitely employee of the month material forever. His strike team consisted of 25 of my most ruthless killers. They marched into that den like it owed them back rent, and rolled back out loaded with treasure. 2 massive energy crystal cores, a bit drained from the fight but still completely functional, and 70 units of bright silver or way past our quotas. 3 solid chunks of thunderstruck wood, which is honestly just as broken as it sounds. And the main jackpot, a hidden underground crystal mine, packed with roughly 200 energy crystals, and 10 space shards still embedded in the rock. Turns out the Wolf King was sitting on a literal fortune this entire time. No wonder the beast fought tooth and nail for this valley. That furry hoarded loot drops. Better than endgame raid bosses. While Lin was out speedrunning caves, I spent the afternoon staring down the most toxic shopping list in gaming history, leveling up our settlement to a small town. Demanded 8,000 food, 5,000 wood, 3,500 stone, 800 iron, 5 energy crystals, 50 units of elite building materials, 10 distinct building types, a 300 total population, at least 1 general, 60% elite troops and 1,000 reputation points, 8,000 food and 5,000 wood. My brain dead-ass blue-screened. That is not a shopping list. That is a generational mortgage. Luckily, the bright silver from the wolf den completely bypassed the rare material roadblock, and my rep was already cruising past 1,200. Thanks to all our relentless conquests and territory expansions. Still, the basic resource grind meant multiplying our entire economic output. Exponentially, the patch notes kept delivering, though. Hitting level 3 unlocked insane new structures. A global market for trading with rival reps? Check. A beast taming facility, hello? Future werewolf cavalry. A medical clinic for rapid recovery. An upgraded blacksmith capable of forging bright silver. Chainmail and lightning-infused gear. And a watchtower with a massive 1.5-kilometer radar range. My inner gamer was vibrating at frequencies only dogs could pick up. I slammed down the market building instantly, and within hours, I got my very first diplomatic ping from Russia. This is Ewan from the Polar Bear Nation. Your growth speed is honestly terrifying. I've got excess furs and cold iron, or want a swap for food and bright silver. Russia's top dog, the infamous violent warlord himself, was literally sliding into my DMs begging for groceries. The exact same guy whose loyal fanbase spent all week flexing his impenetrable fortress was now begging this broke college dropout for a trade deal. Oh, how the tables have turned. We can trade, let's talk numbers. I kept it cool on the outside, but inside I was doing backflips. Cold iron ore was an absolute W for heavy weapons, literally what my army was starving for. Plus, I had food coming out of my ears. 20 farms pumping out enough grain to drown a small country. This was a total win-win. But let's be real, it was a massive W for me. Then America dropped their own major flex global announcement. Smith Jack just unlocked a mechanical workshop and evolved his militia into heavy crossbow cavalry. Lightning fast, armor-piercing mounted shooters. Talk about a completely different tactical vibe compared to my unbreakable infantry fortress. His army was built for speed and burst damage. Mine was a deep, unmovable wall. 2 totally different answers to the meta. The race was heating up. America had crazy mobility. Russia brought raw resources to the table, and I had the undisputed economy, the most cracked general, and a pristine crystal mine just begging to be mined. I immediately queued up a 4th lumber camp, and a 4th quarry for max soldier production, and told the blacksmith to start experimenting with flashy silver armor ASAP. The grind to small-town status was turning into an absolute marathon of resource farming, high-stakes trades, and sweaty base building. But for the first time, I could actually see the finish line, and somewhere up there in the afterlife, Japan's swordmaster was watching this whole disaster unfold, probably thinking, man, maybe I should have built a farm. My army was getting so specialized. It seriously needed its own HR department. Latest elite drop, personal bodyguards. 10 of my biggest, meanest sword and shield elites got dragged into the barracks and walked out looking like literal human refrigerators. Tower shields the size of front doors, and heavy iron-plated gear that turned them into absolute walking tank walls. I dubbed them the Iron Guard, assigned to stick by my side 24/7, because apparently, being the absolute VIP across 2 planets means I should probably stop strolling around defenseless, like a complete clown. The other 6 are locked down at the town center and warehouse because if anyone swipes my grain stash, this entire operation goes up in smoke. The Chinese chat went absolutely feral. Bro's got literal presidential security detail now. Nobody's laying a finger on our boy. Meanwhile, America's viewers were staring hard at their green berets. and single-unit cavalry setup while having a quiet, existential meltdown over troop diversity. The Russia trade went down. Flawlessly, cold iron or for grub and pure silver. Ewan got his groceries while I secured heavy-duty hardware. The guy who spent an entire week flexing about being self-sufficient was now literally dependent on my farming empire just to stay alive. Guess capitalism reigns supreme again. Then the system dropped my territory stats update for the first time. In crisp detail, and seeing it all right there felt like pulling a report card full of straight A's. For literally the first time in my life. Territory level, large village. Tier 3, reputation 1,250 renowned. Total population, 202 souls. Army, 96 absolute elite units. Resources over 4,000 food. 3,200 wood. 3,800 stone. 180 iron, 70 bright silver, energy crystals. Thunderwood the whole 9 yards. 20 farms, 30 houses.
3 lins bécans, 3 caries.
Upgraded barracks, blacksmith, market. Stone walls, arrow towers. Medical clinic currently under construction. The global audience caught these numbers live on stream and collectively lost their minds. 96 soldiers and every single one was an elite class. 0 basic scrub militia left. None. My entire army was 100% premium tier warriors. The age of empires. System template advantage was becoming downright unfair. While all the other reps were still manually grinding out training programs and gear blueprints. I literally tapped buttons on a magic tablet, and fully kit soldiers just spawned out. Felt like having a cheat code. That wasn't technically cheating. I was checking what supplies I needed for the town upgrade. Spoiler alert. A ton of everything. When the market operator sprinted straight at me, like his pants were literally on fire. My lord. An emergency distress signal popped up on the market board. An anonymous rep. Coordinates aren't far from us. They're getting swarmed by undead monsters and offering space crystals for backup. The signal cut out mid-transmission. Undead, undead. As if wolves and goblins weren't enough now. We've got zombies, skeletons, or liches in this world. Whatever flavor of dead stuff that refuses to stay dead. This continent loves to throw at you. But space crystals? Those were right at the top of my shopping list. Incredibly rare, ridiculously valuable, and someone was literally handing them out, just for keeping them alive. The smart play? Stay home, keep grinding resources, and ignore some random stranger's tragedy. The ambitious play? March out with my entire army, save whoever's screaming for their life, rake in those rare crystals, intel on a brand new enemy faction, and flex on the whole world all at once. Guess which one I chose? Lin, Tier 3. 40 halberdiers, 20 crossbowmen, and all 10 iron guards rolling out with me. We're going on a rescue op. Iron String, you've got defense command while I'm gone. I was about to personally lead 70 soldiers into uncharted turf to throw hands with undead monsters I'd never even laid eyes on, all because somebody posted on a medieval Craigslist. Help me out and I'll pay you. A week ago I couldn't even beat 2 wolves. Now I was parading my private army across the map to hunt down the literal living dead. Honestly, character development is a beautiful thing. Iron String looked at me like I'd totally lost my marbles when I dropped the rescue plan. My lord, undead are totally unpredictable, and we'd be fighting on enemy turf. Listen up, Iron String, my man. Someone out there is handing out space crystals just to stay alive. Do you even know what space crystals go for? They're worth more than your worries, more than my safety. Hell, maybe more than this entire damn valley. So we moved out, all 73 of us hitting the march. 40 heavy halberdiers, 20 sharpshooting crossbowmen, 10 iron guards with Lin and myself dead center. Cradled by absolute human refrigerators carrying massive tower shields. It was easily the heaviest firepower I'd ever rolled with. Outside the safety of my home walls. Meanwhile, Iron String kept 24 soldiers. Backed by stone walls to hold down the fort. Should be completely fine. Probably, hopefully. Back online, the Chinese internet was split right down the middle. 50-50 between, this is insanely cool, and bro is about to get slaughtered. America's top commentator called my aggressive strategy bold for the 400th time, while Russia wished us luck, which was actually sweet, considering I had literally just sold them a bunch of groceries. Japan's live chat, however, remained depressingly dead silent. And the deeper we pushed into the wild, the creepier the vibe got. Vibrant green trees withered into dead timber, and the fresh air shifted into something that had rotted ages ago, and just never bothered to stop rotting. The dirt turned gray, barren, and completely lifeless, like the very earth had given up on living. Thick sulfur and decay, the official signature fragrance of undead territory. Suddenly, our scouts sprinted back looking ghost-white. "Sir, we found bodies up ahead, and they aren't human. Some kind of local natives, and get this, they're moving. The dead ones are actually moving. Oh, fantastic, zombies. My absolute favorite." We forged ahead to witness a literal nightmare unfolding in real time. A crude, ramshackle stone outpost swarmed by a literal horde of undead. Most were basic skeleton foot soldiers, wielding rusted blades with eerie green flames glowing in their hollow eye sockets, jerking around like drunk puppets. Mixed straight into the rank and file were actual zombies, dripping with rotting flesh and putting off a stomach-turning stench, moving slow but hitting hard enough to tear you to pieces, and hovering right behind the chaos, directing traffic. Like the world's most wretched orchestra conductor, stood a skeleton mage draped in tattered black robes, waving a bone staff and literally resurrecting the fallen on the spot. Every single dead native instantly flipped into a brand new skeleton soldier. Unlimited, game-breaking reinforcements. Now come on. That is completely cheating. Inside the outpost, whoever sent that distress signal was barely hanging on by a thread. A handful of stocky warriors wrapped in crude metal armor, plus one skinny figure desperately tossing out weak healing spells. Their quiver was practically empty. They had minutes left, not hours.
Formation.
Halberdiers, advance. Crossbows, free fire. Take down that mage first. Iron guard. Protect the flanks. For the Lord. Lin 3 exploded forward like a missile straight out of hell, built entirely out of pure rage and razor-sharp steel. His chi aura was fully visible now, a lethal, faint glow wrapping his blade, that made the nearby undead literally flinch in terror. My halberdiers marched forward in flawless, brutal formation, their massive 2-meter weapons sweeping through skeletons, like brooms wiping away dust. Long polearms versus bony idiots with rusty swords? Not even a contest. Bones were flying everywhere. Suddenly, 20 crossbow bolts slammed into the skeleton line all at once. Skulls popped like overripe melons, their eerie soul fires instantly winking out. Several stray bolts screamed straight toward the opposing mage, who threw up a panic-stricken bone shield right in the nick of time. It blocked most of the volley, but he staggered back hard, his spell completely interrupted. But there were still way too many. Endless skeletons crawling out of the shadows, heavier brutes equipped with actual bone shields, and the ones we had just smashed were already reassembling under the mage's dark command. Shattered bones dragged themselves across the dirt, trying to reform like cursed horror movie building blocks. Crossbow fire instantly pulverized the remaining fragments, leaving nothing left to rebuild. Lin 3. Take out that mage. Lin 3 took a sharp breath, channeled his volatile chi, and unleashed his brand new skill. Earth-splitting slash. He slammed his sword into the ground, and a devastating shockwave ripped forward in a massive fan shape, blasting 7 or 8 skeletons straight into fine powder. Instantly, a pristine corridor opened up directly to the mage. The crossbowman poured heavy fire into both sides of the path to keep it locked down, and Lin 3 sprinted right through the opening. Completely losing his cool, the mage hurled rapid-fire bone spears at him. Lin 3 deflected every single one like he was swatting away annoying flies. Almost there. Just a little closer. Suddenly, 2 giant skeletal claws burst upward from the earth, lunging wildly for his legs. A hidden bone demon ambush. Without missing a beat, Lin 3 leaped into the air and brought his blade down hard. But those claws were iron-forged and brutal, sending sparks flying off his blade, and halting his momentum for 1 split second. The vile mage charged another bone spear, locked dead onto Lin 3, who was completely airborne with 0 room to dodge. That is when an iron guard, an absolute legend, flung his massive tower shield like a frisbee, launching it right into the spear's trajectory. The bone projectile smashed into the barrier, deflecting away, leaving the guard totally exposed. Yet Lin 3 was still breathing, hitting the turf hard. He exploded forward with one final burst of speed, and drove his sword straight through the mage's skull. The eerie soul fire inside flickered out like a blown candle. The skeletal mage collapsed into a pile of dry bones, and terrible fashion choices. Every single remaining undead on the battlefield instantly went brain dead as their movement lagged. Coordination flatlined and broken bones stopped reassembling. Without their dark puppet master, they were nothing more than spare parts. Full attack wiped them off the map. My army rolled through the remaining horde, like a steamroller flattening cheap crackers. 3 minutes flat and it was over, leaving nothing behind but bone dust and dead silence. The surviving troops in the outpost stared in disbelief, like we had literally dropped from the heavens. Short, stocky warriors with wide eyes and one totally drained healer. Clearly not human, clearly from another world entirely. And clearly thrilled they hadn't just met their maker. I straightened my armor plates, strutted toward them flanked by my elite iron guard, and prepared to pull off a move I had never tried before. Down here on this wild continent. Diplomacy. Plus, I still needed to cash out those space crystals. Business is business, even after saving someone's entire life. And deep down in the back of my mind, one nagging question refused to go away. If that was just a low-tier skeleton mage with basic grunts, what happens when we finally face whoever's pulling the strings? The heavy dust settled and out from the ruined wreckage emerged the most menacing little powerhouse I had ever laid eyes on. A dude standing barely up to my chest, built like a fire hydrant stacked solid with muscle, rocking a braided beard so massive it needed its own zip code. He was lugging a battle axe way bigger than his own torso, and dripping head to toe in foul undead goo. Trailing right behind him were 2 absolute heavy-duty death machines, plus 1 super tall, skinny figure with pointy ears wielding a massive wooden staff. Dwarves and an elf? I was straight up living in an Isekai novel. And the side characters just crashed the party. Powerful lord, the lead dwarf boomed in an accent, so chunky you could practically slice it with a knife. I am Copperbeard Stonehof of the legendary Stonehof clan. If not for you, we'd be total skeleton chow right now. He pounded his own chest so aggressively I physically flinched. Lord Lintion. What went down here? His expression instantly soured. The Black Tide, some ancient skeleton lich, just crawled out of a forgotten catacomb tunnel and started converting every single corpse in sight into fresh troops, an absolute infinite army cheat code. We were just trying to mine a tiny little vein down there, and got completely boxed in. Then he reached into the most sketch-looking pouch ever, and pulled out 3 glowing relics that looked like someone bottled up pure starlight in glass. Genuine space crystals. A trio of them swirling with mesmerizing silver energy, humming hard with dimensional power. A deal's a deal. We dwarves always stand by our word. He shoved them right into my hands, like he was casually returning a borrowed wrench. 3 space crystals, paired with the rare tin still buried deep in my personal mine. Back home, I was stacking legendary resources like an absolute loot goblin, hoarding all the shiny drops. That Sweet Town upgrade was getting closer with every single quest. Meanwhile, the elf Isla, a certified wood speaker, stepped up to offer her skills too. She could speedrun plant growth and bust out solid healing spells. My inner strategy gamer was buzzing on hyperdrive. Dwarves who excel at mining and epic forging, plus an elf who can ultra boost farming? These weren't just random survivors. These were top-tier premium DLC characters. So I laid out an offer they couldn't possibly pass up. Settle down right near my territory. I'll keep you safe and fed. You mine, forge, and grow crops for me. Deal? Copperbeard's massive beard practically stood straight up in hype. Deal. You're a real one for this. Lord Lintion. The Stonehof clan officially recognizes you as an ally. He looked like a hyped-up puppy. If that puppy was made entirely of solid rock and swinging a battle axe. And honestly, the comment section was going absolutely feral. He recruited hardcore dwarves and a top-tier elf.
Elite mining spécialiste plus un nature mage.
This has got to be the most busted party composition in history. Someone in chat typed, Lintion is speedrunning every single fantasy trope. Simultaneously, and honestly, fair point because this wild adventure apparently dropped a massive bonus prize. One of my guys literally dug up a black stone tablet, buried right under the skeleton mage's remains. The system instantly decoded it. A partial map pointing to something called the burial grounds, alongside raw fragments of dark undead rituals. Warning. Using necromancy may cause sudden insanity and moral alignment shifts. Cool, so I've officially unlocked forbidden dark magic. Instructions filed firmly under absolutely not touching this, though it's definitely interesting intel. Knowing how the enemy operates. doesn't mean turning into the enemy. I'm a broke college graduate, not an edgy dark lord. Even if that line is getting dangerously blurry right now. We marched back home with our new crew. Copperbeard, Isla, a dozen fierce dwarf warriors and elf apprentices, looking like the most culturally diverse medieval field trip in existence. Back at base, I put them straight to work. Dwarves paired with my mining chief, Lin 9, to completely overhaul our quarry operations. Isla teamed up with farming extraordinaire, Lin 2, to experiment with next-level crop buffs. Space crystals locked tight in the vault. Necromancy tablets sealed and heavily guarded. Because I don't need that kind of temptation. My territory now boasted humans, dwarves, and an elf all grinding together. My army had just crushed a horde of undead in enemy territory. I secured trade deals with Russia, forged an alliance with indigenous species, and packed enough rare materials to seriously start planning that town upgrade. For real though, that stone tablet kept nagging at the back of my mind. That skeleton mage was just a scout. Tiny advance force of a massive threat called the Black Tide. Whatever dark factory was churning out these endless undead was still out there, fully operational, and probably still starving for action. I'd solved the wolf problem. I completely solved the goblin problem. I'd solved the food crisis, the housing shortage, the military deficit, and the diplomatic headache. The undead threat, that one was just getting warmed up. I rolled back from fighting the undead, alongside a squad of dwarves and an elf, and immediately did what I do best. Burn through resources like they personally insulted me. 10 new farm plots, a 4th lumber camp, a 4th quarry, 30 brand new farmers, 8 halberdiers and 4 crossbowmen. I was churning out orders so fast. The stone tablet probably needed a smoke break. Resources were flying out of my account, like panicked birds fleeing a cage. Zero regrets, though, because I'd finally learned the ultimate economic lesson of 2 lifetimes. Money sitting idle in a warehouse is dead weight. My new recruits were already earning their keep. Copperbeard and his dwarf crew went prospecting, and locked onto a massive iron vein on the west side of my territory, within hours. Turns out, dwarves can dead-ass sense metal underground, operating like some kind of geological Wi-Fi. Their mining guidance boosted my extraction efficiency by a massive 50%. Lin 9 almost shed a tear of pure joy. Isla, the wood speaker, worked her nature magic across a few test fields, and the crops instantly started skyrocketing in growth. A solid 20% production boost, just from an elf whispering sweet nothings to the wheat. Lin 2, my resident farming general, looked at her like she was an actual goddess, descended straight from agricultural heaven. Honestly, I think he's low-key in love with her crop rotation. Naturally, I dispatched 4 scouting teams in every direction. North, south, east, and west, covering a 5-kilometer radius to map resources, threats, rival players, and mysterious ruins. Whatever was out there, knowledge is power, and I was aggressively power-hungry in every single way. Then Japan finally unlocked their new representative, and the entire internet collectively winced. Shido Kanzuya, low-level office drone, mid-20s scrawny build, thick glasses and a deeply wrinkled suit, clutching a briefcase in a dark cave, looking like he caught the totally wrong subway, and straight up spawned in hell. He deployed his town core and got a shack. That made my day 1 setup look like a 5-star resort. Then, he tried foraging berries and got totally spooked by a spider. Just a regular-sized spider. He wiped out on his tailbone and sat there shaking. Japan's regional chat was in absolute shambles. Why an office clerk? The guy is terrified of bugs. We used to have an actual sword master. Some viewer typed. At least Lin Tian was hilarious when he was useless. And honestly, that's low-key the nicest thing anyone's ever said about my early game grind. I felt a fraction of sympathy for the dude, a tiny fraction. I literally was him 8 days ago, totally clueless, terrified, and wildly unqualified. The catch was I actually had gamer instincts. And the universe accidentally blessed me with an age of empires. Cheat code while this poor soul got a corporate briefcase. And a crippling phobia of small arachnids. The war continent was going to devour him alive. Literally, probably. Meanwhile, my territory was pumping out numbers that belonged in a Wall Street quarterly earnings report. Evening harvest across 30 active farms. 3,600 food units scored in a single drop. Total food reserves sitting at 6,580. Wood. Production from 4 maxed lumber camps with 20 workers. Pulling around 2,500 daily. Stone from 4 quarries running on dwarf buff deficiency. Hitting roughly 1,300. Iron flowing in steadily from the newly tapped rich vein. I pulled up the town upgrade requirements one more time. 8,000 food practically there. 5,000 wood. Locked down tomorrow. 3,500 stone already practically in the bag. 800 iron nearly maxed out. Special materials checked off. Structural requirements secured. Population past 200 military readiness. 100% elite status. Clout meters overflowing. Just 1 or 2 more days of heavy grinding. And I'd unlock the whole tree. The finish line wasn't just on the radar anymore. I could practically reach out and taste the victory. Small town tier 1 was incoming. And unlocking heavy-duty cavalry stables. Advanced tech structures, elite high-tier units. And the kind of dominance that would make every single rival faction on this continent sweat. Bullets. Meanwhile, deep in a damp, miserable cave, some Japanese salaryman was losing it over a spider. Back in my neck of the woods, a dwarf was literally punching solid rock barehanded. And an elf was out here whispering sweet nothings to my crops. Life on the war continent had genuinely never been better. Which basically guaranteed a total disaster was incoming. But hey, that's future me's headache. Tonight's version of me was chilling on the fortress walls, stacking resources and flexing as the most absurdly successful unemployed slacker in 2 different universes. Copperbeard got his mining operation locked in and loaded, and within hours, my iron shortage went from a painful bottleneck to a massive, we literally can't haul this fast enough crisis. 20 hardcore miners. Dwarves handling the heavy-duty technical excavation. Humans grinding out the hauling. Hammering away at the richest iron vein any of us had ever laid eyes on. The sound of dwarf pickaxes smashing into stone was absolute heaven to my ears. Way better than any pop track, better than birds chirping. Just the gorgeous rhythm of pure industrial progression. And I didn't take my foot off the gas for even a second. 5 more farms, 20 fresh farmers deployed, 8 seasoned halberdiers, 4 deadly crossbowmen. At this stage I was dropping build orders. Like an absolute addict on an idle clicker game.
Top, 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 top.
Except every single tap manifested actual fortifications. And blood-ready soldiers. My territory had evolved into a juggernaut. Converting raw time straight into raw power. Hour after hour, more food. More lumber, more stone. More iron, more troops. The metrics were just skyrocketing non-stop. And then Japan's second representative flatlined. And I swear my spirit temporarily left my physical body. Just like that, Sito Kenzuya. The ordinary office clerk. The dude with the corporate briefcase and crippling arachnophobia. He survived a grand total of 1 single day. Wanna know how he bit the dust? He tried to tunnel deeper into his starter cave. With absolute 0 mining experience. 0 geological sense. 0 clue period. And he ended up collapsing the entire mountain on his own head. Buried alive by his own ceiling. The live feed just showed shaking, muffled screams, then pure static and finally a gray flag. Japan was officially down to their last life. 3 reps total. A legendary sword master slaughtered by a tentacled monstrosity, and an office drone crushed by rocks he had no business digging. 2 tragic deaths, 0 territory gained. 0 resources materialized. Their internet was having a full-blown existential meltdown. Why can't we get anyone competent? We're gonna get erased. The gods have totally abandoned us. And the punishment wasn't a joke. 15% of Japan's actual homeland resources straight up vanished. Real infrastructure disappearing into thin air. Real panic sweeping real cities. I paused for maybe 2 seconds. When I heard the announcement. Not out of coldness, but out of sheer survival. I couldn't save Japan. I couldn't save anyone except my own people. And my people needed me locked in and focused. Because when I pulled up my resource panel, I saw something that made my heart race. Faster than any boss fight ever had. Every single requirement for the small town upgrade was finally met. I stared at that checklist. Like an honor student who just realized they aced every exam. My hands were literally shaking. 8 days of grinding, fighting, barely surviving, building, trading, playing politics, and spending resources like an absolute maniac. All leading to this exact moment. Tomorrow morning we level up to a small town level 3. Iron string, level 2. Everyone in the room completely erupted. Fists pumping in the air, voices roaring with hype. That raw, undeniable energy you only get from people who've bled together and built an empire from absolute scratch. But I wasn't about to let anything ruin this milestone. Not goblins, not wolves, not the undead, not even some random bear with terrible timing. Town level 3. Full lockdown sweep, deploy every mobile unit, and scrub every single threat within a 5-kilometer radius. If it's got fangs and isn't on our payroll, wipe it out. I want absolutely zero breathing room out there. Tomorrow. Elite kill squads fanned out across the valley, like a brutal medieval pest control crew, slaughtering every stray beast, leftover goblin straggler, and anything else that dared look at my turf. Sideways. By sunset, the valley was spotless, the farms glowing gold, the forges roaring, and the ramparts shining. 350 souls, humans, dwarves, and one lone elf, were all grinding toward the exact same goal. Tomorrow I'd stop being a lowly village and level up to a town. The first true town on the war continent. The first real civilization, built by the exact guy everyone laughed at on day one. And thousands of miles away across the sea, Japan was hanging by a thread, praying for a miracle, while I was about to evolve into something nobody could ever ignore. Crazy how the world works, right? The sword master flatlined in a pond. The corporate drone perished in a ditch, and the broke-ass gamer who once obsessed over cabbages was about to become an absolute king. I slammed my hand down on that stone tablet and spoke the words I'd been visualizing for days. Upgrade to small town. The monolith didn't just glow, it went nuclear. Raw energy erupted, like someone smashed open a dying star, and dumped it right over my entire territory. Not blinding, just warm, heavy, absolute, and unstoppable. The ground started throbbing like a massive heartbeat, and I swear to God, the earth itself took a deep breath and flexed. Then everything began to morph. My rock-solid walls shot up like living titans, growing taller, thicker, shifting into that sleek, battle-hardened blue-gray of ancient bedrock, forged by 1,000 years of unyielding storms. The perimeter violently pushed outward, swallowing fresh farmlands and production buildings into its impenetrable embrace. My junky little town center reconfigured itself into a stunning administrative hall, towering and absolute, the kind of massive fortress that screams, royalty lives here and they've got a private army. Every single structure upgraded all at once. Housing got beefed up, barracks expanded. Warehouses doubled in size, actual paved roads, suddenly connecting the whole place in a legit grid system. And right on the 4 corners of my domain, massive watchtowers burst out of the dirt, like brutal stone giants, each one loaded down with heavy-duty ballistic-grade crossbows. I leveled up from a medieval dump to an actual civilization in about 60 seconds of magical real estate renovation. Upgrade complete, territory status. Small town tier 1 unlocked. Brand new facilities, an academy for high-tech research, a relay station for lightning-fast comms, an arsenal for heavy weapon storage, a workshop for advanced crafting, and fresh troops, heavy armored pikemen, absolute human tanks wielding massive iron spears, elite crossbowmen packing insane range, and game-breaking stopping power, the kind of squad that makes rival factions regret existing. From 3 football fields away, and the best part, the management system. I could finally assign officers official titles and put them in charge of actual sectors. My tiny patch of land was getting a government, and my people went completely ballistic. Soldiers banging their swords against their shields, farmers shedding actual tears of joy, Copperbeard laughing so hard his massive beard was shaking. Even Isla cracked a smile, which is basically her equivalent of a standing ovation. Live chat online was melting down at temperatures that broke the laws of physics. First small town on the entire server. Those outer walls look ridiculously clean. Heavy armored pikemen are an absolute nightmare. Bro started with a broken shack and now he owns a metropolis. I instantly shifted into hardcore bureaucrat mode. Lin 3 promoted to Supreme Military Commander, ruling over all armed forces. Iron String heading up the elite crossbow division. Lin 2 locked in as Director of Agriculture, teaming up with Isla and Copperbeard, taking over as Chief Workshop Superintendent, running every single mining and forging operation. Just like that, I built a working government in 10 minutes. That was honestly way more organized than actual governments back on Earth. Brand new elite troops started flooding out of the barracks, starting with heavy-duty armored pikemen. These guys were decked out in so much iron plating. They looked like they got swallowed whole by a tank. Their spears were longer, thicker, and tipped with steel that could shred right through a fortress gate. Elite crossbowmen rolled out next-gen gear, packed with complex mechanical systems hitting harder, faster, and further than anything we'd ever seen. My academy instantly went to work, researching agricultural buffs and weapon upgrades. The relay station mapped out internal trade routes. Everything was locking into place, like the most satisfying puzzle ever built. Then the scouts dropped some intel that made my resource-addicted brain light up like Times Square. 4 kilometers northwest, a massive river with prime flatlands on the other side, ideal for expansion 6 kilometers north.
A totali exposed qual mine.
Coal means ultra-high temperature smelting. Higher temperatures mean premium steel. Premium steel means blades that slice through anything. I stood at the peak of my brand new administrative hall and gazed down at my empire, towering walls gleaming in the sunlight. Over 30 farms stretching all the way to the horizon. Forges pumping smoke. Heavy armor units patrolling in flawless formation. Hundreds of people, humans, dwarves, and elves all grinding together. In a city that didn't even exist 9 days ago. 9 days since I was a scrawny nobody, sucking down fake nutrients from a pouch. Hoping and praying China didn't get stuck with a total liability. Plot twist. China definitely got stuck with a liability. He just refused to stay that way. I didn't wield some legendary swordsman's blade. I didn't have a Black Ops tactical background. I didn't have superhuman strength or OP magic spells, or even basic athletic coordination. I had farms and I had spreadsheets in my head. I had the stubbornness of a guy grinding. Age of Empires until 3 a.m. on a weeknight, backed by people who were fiercely loyal, insanely brave, and turning my wild schemes into reality. With pure blood and sweat, a breeze swept across my fortifications, carrying the scent of warm bakery bread, forged iron, and something totally fresh, something that smelled like the future. Somewhere out there, bigger threats were lurking. The Black Tide, rival champions from other nations, dangers I couldn't even fathom yet. Bring it on. I'm not a jobless college grad anymore. I'm the mayor of the frontier's premier town, commander of an elite strike force.
Dwarf Eli, Elf Bro.
Nightmare of goblins, slayer of wolf kings, destroyer of the undead, and the guy who turned a literal wasteland into paradise. And honestly, I'm just getting warmed up. That post-level up high lasted about 30 seconds before I opened the next upgrade requirements, and my jaw dropped so hard, probably dented the floorboards. Town level 2 needs 15,000 food, 10,000 wood, 8,000 stone, 2,000 iron, 1,000 units of coal. A resource I don't even own yet. 3 rare materials, 100 units each. A brand new materialization crystal. 15 different building types. 500 population, 2 generals or 1 elite first-tier general. 70% advanced troops, a 10-kilometer control radius. 3 town-tier research projects completed, and 3,000 reputation points. I read it twice, then a third time, contemplating face-planting on the floor and quitting. Then I remembered 14 billion viewers were watching, stood right back up. Challenge accepted. I went full CEO mode, maxing out every single resource hub. Copper beard. Got dispatched north with an engineering squad to tap that newly discovered coal vein, because you can't smelt advanced steel without coal, and I can't level up without advanced steel. The academy instantly kicked off research for crop rotation, advanced irrigation, and crossbow upgrades all at once. Because apparently my little settlement is a full-blown university now. Patrols pushed deeper out, setting up forward bases. Right at the 10-kilometer mark. More settlers drafted to colonize the fertile land. Across the northwestern river. Blueprints drawn up for a brand new dock. The expansion was rolling. Then Lin 3 squad hit the absolute jackpot at the coal mine. While clearing out the sector, they stumbled on a hidden crack in the mountainside, and tucked inside it was something that made every past find look like loose change found under a couch. A Geovian stone core the size of a washbasin, glowing warm yellow, and peering inside it, you could see ghostly projections of mountains, with underground rivers weaving through them, like a living topographical map. This thing was pulsing with Earth energy. The system flagged it as a rare materialization medium that specifically terraforms land and mineral deposits. Not water like the last crystals. Not generic juice like the first one. This beast prints dirt and ore. On a wasteland where 70% of the map is desert. And every mine is running bone dry. A crystal that creates brand new. Mineral-packed farmland is basically a god-tier drop. Chat was going wild. He found another one? This meta-breaking item spawns mines and farms? Is he hacking? Is the simulation rigged? Then someone dropped a massive truth bomb. It's not luck. He explored, he grinded, he fought. He built the exact coal mine that triggered the discovery. Opportunity only knocks if you build the damn door. That guy gets it, massive respect. Shout out to anonymous chat philosopher. The tier 2 upgrade desperately needed a new materialization medium. And I was literally holding one right in my hands. Fate keeps throwing curveballs at my face. But it always drops the cheat codes. Right around the corner. Like a hardcore game dev who wants you to sweat. But still wants you to beat the level. Then, because my life strictly follows the golden rule of anime. Every major dub must instantly be followed by disaster. The northern outpost flashed an emergency alert. Just 5 kilometers from the coal mine. Something massive was closing in. And forget wolves or goblins. Not undead. Something brand new. Completely unknown, massive in scale. Hyper-aggressive and definitely pissed about our presence. Of course, there's a boss guarding the resource. There's literally always a monster guarding the resource. This is basically a survival game coded by a total sadist. Lin 3. Take every heavy pikeman. Every elite crossbowman, half the standard crossbow units. And all 10 iron guards straight to that coal mine right now. Track down whatever is lurking out there. Figure out what it is and if it's hostile. Which it obviously is. Because literally everything in this world wants me dead. Obliterate it and protect the stone core. Protect the coal mine. Lin 3's eyes lit up. Like I just handed him a birthday present. Repti impure joy. Yes. My lord. My army. Pushed north looking like an unstoppable steel avalanche. Heavy armor gleaming, crossbows locked and loaded. The ground trembling beneath hundreds of ironclad boots. I stayed behind to manage the settlement. Glaring at the tactical sand table. Shifting pieces, crunching resource numbers. Stressing over my general. Stressing over the unknown beast. Stressing over everything. 9 days ago I was terrified. Completely solo, armed with a sharpened stick. Today, I'm the mayor of a booming town. Commander of a loyal army. Dispatching my elite warrior general. To slay mystery monsters. While I juggle a multi-species economy of dwarves. Elves and 200 humans. The grind to tier 2 was going to be longer. Grittier and way more expensive than anything before. But somewhere hidden in a northern mountain crevice. A warm stone was pulsing. With the raw power to generate entire landscapes. All I had to do was stay alive long enough to use it. The absolute story of my life. I didn't wait for Lin 3 to finish. Securing the northern perimeter. Waiting around is for people who lack a reality-breaking magic rock. Capable of copy-pasting entire biomes across dimensions. I held the Giovanni stone core right in my palms. Radiating warmth like a literal geological heartbeat. And I wasn't about to let it sit in a dusty warehouse. Gathering cobwebs. While monsters debated whether to raid my coal mine, max alert walls on high guard, iron string locked down. Your commanding defense. If anything even twitches wrong, melt it first and deal with the paperwork later. Yes, sir. Then I rolled up to my stone tablet, slammed the Giovanni core into the slot and muttered, "Do your thing, magic dirt rock." The tablet didn't flash blinding light into the sky this time. Instead, it beamed downward. Deep, heavy earth. A rich brown glow pulsing like a massive, underground heartbeat. The ground itself started throbbing in rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. Pure raw power like the planet itself was doing push-ups. The system scanned 3.1 square kilometers of terrain. And everything buried beneath it. All the way down to 100 meters, including my iron mine. Including whatever insane geological secrets were hiding under my feet. That I didn't even know existed. The multiplier starts spinning. And every human on Earth holds their breath all over again. You'd think they'd be used to this by now. But nope. 55 times 3.1 times 55 equals a staggering 170.5 square kilometers of land, soil. And here's the kicker that made grown men weep. A monstrously rich iron deposit buried underneath it all. Not a little vein, not a decent little mine. A mega-deposit of premium-grade iron ore, with estimated reserves, that completely dwarfed every known iron mine in China. Right there on Earth, deep in the Western Highlands, 170 square kilometers of hyperfertile land, featuring rolling hills and pitch-black, nutrient-rich soil materialized out of thin air. And right beneath that gorgeous dirt, an iron mine so ridiculously massive that top geologists were literally screaming into their comms. Mega deposit. Highest grade. This changes the entire game. The global broadcast echoed across the world 3 times. China Representative Lin Tian has just materialized. 170.5 square kilometers of territory. And a strategic-grade iron deposit. Previous materializations made other countries jealous. But this one terrified them. Land is nice, water is essential. But iron? Iron is tanks. Iron is buildings, iron is bridges. Railways, weapons, industry. Iron is the skeleton of civilization. I just handed China enough iron to rebuild itself from scratch. America's president was reportedly screaming at his staff. Russia's colonel just downed a whole bottle of vodka. In dead silence, countries that hadn't claimed any crystals yet were spiraling into total political chaos. And China? China was having an unofficial national holiday that nobody put on the calendar, but absolutely everyone was celebrating anyway. My territory felt different after the transfer, heavier, way more solid, like the earth itself had been buffed from the inside out. The stone core crumbled right into dust. Its job officially done. Its legacy now permanently embedded in Chinese soil. 13,000 kilometers away. Then, Lin 3's frontline report came in and snapped me right back to reality. My lord, contact with unknown hostiles is confirmed. Mountain giant apes. Adults stand over 3 meters tall, ridiculously strong, thick fur acting like natural armor. They throw boulders. Estimated population, 30 to 50. They've fortified a mountain valley. That's practically an impenetrable fortress. We're in a standoff, awaiting further orders. 3-meter-tall apes that hurl boulders. 30 to 50 of them locked in a fortress valley. Because of course the thing guarding my coal mine is an army of King Kongs, who somehow mastered siege warfare. Why would anything ever be easy? Why would a single thing in my life ever go smoothly? But hey, look on the bright side. I just dropped 170 square kilometers of iron-rich paradise right into my country. My confidence was at an all-time high. My army was elite and my general basically had cheat codes. And honestly, after dealing with wolves, goblins, the undead, skeleton mages, and tentacle monsters that snack on sword masters, giant apes felt almost refreshingly straightforward. Tell Lin 3, do not charge the valley. Rain down crossbow fire to keep them on edge. Seal every escape route and starve them out.
I'm dispatching reinforcements.
And enough heavy-duty, armor-piercing bolts to turn that valley into a porcupine. Move it, copper beard. Faster smelting. I need iron arrows. Iron bolts. Iron everything. If it's sharp and made of metal, I want 1,000 of them by tomorrow. Those apes chose to set up camp right between me and my coal mine. Talk about a terrible career move. I had a town, a master forge, a dwarf, and an industrial economy primed to manufacture their extinction. 3 materializations complete. An oasis, a massive river system, and now a full-blown iron empire stamped onto Chinese soil. Total territory gifted to my country? Over 220 square kilometers of premium real estate. On a planet actively dying of resource starvation. And honestly, I was just getting started. The Tier 2 upgrade was waiting. More crystals to scavenge, more enemies to utterly crush, more land to conquer. Somewhere up in heaven, the original owner of this body was watching me turn his pathetic little life into a continental superpower, probably thinking, damn, all I needed was a spill and a keyboard? Should have done that years ago. 3 guys versus 30 boulder-throwing giant apes. Sounds like a garbage movie pitch. For us, it was just Tuesday. These mountain beasts were completely absurd. Standing 3 meters tall, wrapped in fur thick enough to shrug off a blade. Their entire tactical playbook consisted of hoisting rocks, the size of dining room tables, and launching them like furry siege engines. Their golden-furred alpha perched at the peak of the valley, like a hairy king on a throne. bellowing orders while his underlings rained down.
Pure geological L.
On anyone foolish enough to walk past. A direct frontal charge?
Total suicide.
Lucky for them, I didn't build the world's largest crossbow army to run into melee range. I built it to obliterate things from very, very far away. Miles away. Lin 3 absolutely understood the assignment. Deploying 3 rotating squads of elite crossbowmen. Taking turns stepping smoothly forward. And unleashing armor-piercing bolts. Then cycling back while the next squad stepped up to the line. Meanwhile, the heavy pikemen locked down a wall to deflect any stray boulders. The Iron Guard slammed their tower shields into position, treating falling debris like a light drizzle. It was the most brutal, methodical, and gorgeous slaughter I have ever laid eyes on. Those beasts couldn't even touch us, while our bolts kept finding their marks. Every few minutes another towering ape shrieked in agony, clutching a thick bolt buried deep in its chest, before crashing hard off its perch. Those heavy-duty tips punched through their dense fur, like it was wet paper. And when supply runners rushed in with fresh ammunition, the sheer volume of incoming fire literally choked out the sky over the valley. Those giant apes went from raging to utterly baffled, and then terrified in under 20 minutes. Finally, their golden alpha let out one last desperate, heartbroken roar, and dragged its remaining 20-some survivors, smashing through a crumbling perimeter wall, to flee deep into the unforgiving mountains. We didn't pursue them. Chasing enraged giant beasts into uncharted peaks is a fast track to becoming a cautionary ghost story. Instead, it was time to claim the real prize. Deep inside the monster lair, my scouts flagged a massive boulder the Alpha had been using as a throne, pitch black as the abyss itself. Yet whenever the light hit it just right, countless tiny silver constellations shimmered inside. One soldier tapped it with a blade, and it rang out like a church bell. Lin 3 tried slicing it with a masterwork dagger, and couldn't even leave a surface mark. He rushed a sample back to my headquarters at top speed. I slammed it down onto the system tablet, and the appraisal data flashed instantly in my face. Stellar iron or peak legendary grade. Imbued with concentrated cosmic energy. Absurdly durable, boasting unmatched flexibility. And supreme magical conductivity. The ultimate god-tier material for forging divine weapons. And special constructions. Stellar iron, literal meteoric drops straight from the cosmos. And way tougher than anything forged by mortal hands. The kind of overpowered material that, in any RPG, would glow with golden text and sparkly particle effects. And get this, an entire vein of it ran right through that valley. Those dumb apes had been using priceless space metal as patio furniture. I dubbed the valley Stellar Valley on the spot. Because I'm dramatic like that. Copperbeard got immediately dispatched to inspect the deposit and kickstart experimental smelting. The Master Dwarf was about to lose his absolute mind. Laying eyes on this stuff. Dwarves and rare metals are like sugar-addicted kids in a candy store. The Tier 2 upgrade demanded 3 distinct rare materials, at 100 units a pop. I already had bright silver at 70 units. Getting close now stellar iron. Freshly bagged, making it 2 down and 1 to go. Just one final rare component. And the quest checklist is fully cleared.
Sha.
Was deadass comparing me to some manhwa protagonist. Farming plot coupons. Bros out here collecting the infinity stones. 3 materializations, 2 rare ores. A dwarf forge master, and a dunk on them elf farmer. This is legitimately the most cracked party in strategy history. I stood posted over my sand table, glaring at the blank, unexplored eastern and southern sectors of the map. Somewhere out there waited the final rare resource I needed. Somewhere out there lurked enemies I hadn't smoked yet. Allies yet to be recruited, and crystals begging to be looted. Battle number 8 was a flawless W with precisely 0 casualties. On my squad, pure, undisputed tactical dominance. No shonen heroics required, just cold hard math. Calculated range and an absurd, unhealthy volume of crossbow bolts. 9 days ago, I almost got cooked by a couple of stray wolves. Today, I wiped out 50 massive mutant apes, without losing a single grunt. Unearthed rare space metal and materialized 170 square kilometers of iron-rich territory. For my growing empire before breakfast. The gap between absolute zero and unstoppable powerhouse turns out to be just one solid strategy game. Cheat code and an unhealthy addiction to heavy-duty ballistas. 2 rare materials secured, Just one more to go. The treasure hunt keeps rolling on. Right after crushing that ape, I did something I hadn't touched since dropping onto this continent. I sat my ass down and actually read my own spreadsheets. Like proper spreadsheets with actual numbers and columns and everything. My inner programmer was finally having his absolute field day. Army headcount locked in and razor sharp this time. No more guesswork. Exactly 148 battle-hardened soldiers. 1 second-tier warrior general leading the charge. 45 heavy armored pikemen built like absolute walking tanks. 38 elite crossbowmen who could dead-ass snipe a fly from 300 meters. 35 regular crossbowmen laying down heavy suppressing fire. 8 scouts keeping watch. 10 iron guards, whose entire life purpose was making sure nothing snacked on me. 12 sword and shield boys handling literally everything else. Every single one of them a seasoned combat veteran. Not a single green rookie in the lineup. So I made the executive call to stop mass recruiting meat shields. I know, shocking, right? The guy who spent 9 straight days screaming for more crossbows finally called it quits on the archer spam. Massive character growth. Instead, I'm shifting focus to maxing out the crew I already got. Upgraded gear, sharper and deadlier tactics. And finally greenlighting that elite breaker battalion that Lin 3 had been crying about ever since the Wolf War ended. Then I went full mad scientist nerd on my infrastructure. Every single building mapped out what it does. Headcount required and the exact output per hour tracked down. 30 farms demanding 30 farmers. Pumping out 120 food a pop per cycle. 4 lumber camps. With 20 workers harvesting 2,400 wood daily. 20 quarry miners churning out a massive 1,200 stone, iron, and coal mines operating under Copperbeard's strict supervision. The Academy researching 3 game-changing techs simultaneously. The market scouting trade routes, the workshop, experimenting with crazy stellar iron prototypes, and relay stations hyperspeeding our comms network. My whole territory had leveled up so intensely. It basically needed an entire PowerPoint deck just to explain. I was juggling over 100 farmers, close to 150 elite soldiers, multiple allied species backing up our R&D departments, 8 massive resource extraction hubs, and trade ties with Russia, and rock-solid defensive perimeters, stretching out for kilometers in every direction. I used to manage messy code repositories. Now I'm running an entire civilization. Not gonna lie. The skill set translates way better than you'd think. With internal affairs completely locked down, I shifted my focus to the map, specifically those massive blank zones stamped with zero clue what's lurking in here. First up, the perilous East Mystery Hills and Forests. I deployed 30 elite soldiers to scout 15 kilometers deep. Primary mission: hunt down rare resources, precious jade, exotic timber, anything outside my current stash, and keep an eye out for other reps, whether they're looking to vibe or ready to throw hands. Next, the South River. Scouting downstream and whatever madness lies beyond it. Another squad of 30 hitting the same radius. Map the terrain, secure resources, and investigate if anyone else has been spamming distress calls from that sector. Finally, heading north. Lin 3 holding down Stellar Valley, carefully pushing deeper into the craggy mountains, hunting down those retreating ape beasts to find their main base or hidden mountain loot drops. And I emphasize carefully because I'm done losing good soldiers to cheap ambushes. 3 heavy exploration squads, sweeping across the entire continent, acting like history's most heavily armed cartography crew while my Tier 2 upgrade shopping list gets steadily checked off. Basic building materials are stacking up crazy fast. Wood, stone, all rocketing toward those steep progression goals. Coal mining is officially live. Iron output spiked thanks to top-tier dwarven craftsmanship. 2 ultra-rare materials confirmed. Bright silver and stellar iron. Just need one more rare drop and I'm totally set. Chat's literally watching me crunch numbers in real time, and somehow finding it insanely hype. Bro is literally playing 4D chess. He's running this whole empire like a ruthless CEO. Feels like watching someone play Civilization. Except it's completely real, some viewer typed. Steady expansion with god-tier macro planning. 0 dumb risks. That's the golden rule now. The flashy phase of desperate, edge-of-your-seat survival. And insane boss battles? Dead and gone. We were officially in the grindy, crucial, unsexy mid-game. The exact phase where real empires are built on cold, hard logistics, meticulous planning, ruthless resource management, and peak efficiency. I wasn't some desperate underdog anymore, fending off wild beasts with pointlessly sharp sticks. I was a full-blown CEO, commanding a multi-species stronghold backed by a deadly, trained army, a booming industrial engine, and a top-tier R&D department. Is it less cinematic? Sure. Is it infinitely more lethal? Absolutely. Somewhere deep in the wilderness, my elite recon squads were braving uncharted territory, hunting down the final key to unlock my next tier progression. And lurking in the back of my mind, a dark, persistent voice kept nagging at me. The black tide was still creeping closer. The undead legions were steadily mass-producing, and this brutal continent hadn't even unleashed its real horrors yet. But for right now, spreadsheets. Sweet, glorious, flawlessly organized spreadsheets. The broke college grad had evolved into a cold, calculating overlord, and he had never been more dangerous. I pulled up the insane Tier 2 requirement list and put it right beside my actual stockpile, staring at the massive deficit like an exhausted student, checking their empty bank balance on rent day. Now, a sane person would probably take it slow, gradually scale up their infrastructure, and patiently grind toward those massive milestones over the next few days. But I am definitely not a sane person. I instantly recruited 100 farmers. 100. In a single, insane order. Poof. 2,000 food vanished in a split second. The stone tablet was probably genuinely convinced I'd lost my damn mind. 100 blinding pillars of light later, I was staring at a whole village worth of fresh recruits, standing in formation, looking utterly bewildered but ready to grind. Except I wasn't even close to done. Not by a long shot. 20 brand new farms, 2 extra lumber camps, 2 more quarries, a second iron mine, and a second coal mine. I was spamming that construct button so fast. My hand was a complete blur, resources hemorrhaging out of my treasury, like a ruptured artery. Wood, stone, food. As resources plummeted, my accountant brain was screaming in absolute agony, while my gamer brain was laughing maniacally. Hey, growth requires massive investment, baby. When the dust finally settled, my production empire looked like an absolute beast.
50 farms, 6 limbécans.
6 quarries, 2 iron mines, and 2 coal mines all running at maximum capacity, staffed by specialized workers. The daily output projections alone made me dizzy. 6,000 food a day, 3,600 wood a day, 1,800 stone a day, with iron and coal pouring in endlessly, under Copperbeard's dwarf-powered supervision. These weren't mere village numbers anymore. These were heavy industrial metrics. I was basically running the medieval equivalent of a Fortune 500 powerhouse. Then Copperbeard waddled right in, carrying something that made every single soldier in the room stop dead in their tracks. A full suit of elite armor. And not just any gear. This thing was an absolute masterpiece. Layered metal plates overlapping precisely like mountain ridges, expertly blending regular iron, a bright silver alloy, and a razor-thin coating of stellar iron across all the critical strike zones. He proudly dubbed it mountain pattern iron armor, 30% lighter than pure iron plate, yet 50% stronger, offering insane defense against crushing blows and sharp stabs. The guy was practically vibrating with pure pride, his massive beard bouncing with every word. I touched it, cold, smooth, and impossibly balanced, the exact kind of high-tier gear that makes enemies. Take one look at your vanguard and think, maybe I seriously need to reconsider my life choices. Mass produce it right now. Lin's troops get the first batch. Copperbeard threw a fist salute and marched straight out, belting out a booming dwarf mining song at the top of his lungs. That little rock-loving maniac was easily worth his weight in stellar iron. Meanwhile, my scouts were sending back wild discoveries too. The eastern team stumbled upon an entire forest of ironwood trees, flora so absurdly dense and hard that the wood was essentially plant-flavored metal, ideal for heavy construction and lethal weapons. And the southern team confirmed that the downstream land was insanely fertile, while spotting what looked like deliberate artificial excavation marks on the far riverbank. Someone or something had been tearing that earth up. Another classic local mystery for another day. I stood towering over my sand table, watching the stats skyrocket in real time. Every hour, hundreds of units of raw resources poured endlessly into my storehouses. The gap between what I had and what I needed was shrinking right before my eyes. We were set to hit 10,000 within 2 days flat. Stone was basically maxed, iron climbing steadily. Coal definitely needed a push, though the second mine was already pulling its weight. 2 rare materials locked down and secured. Just 1 more left to find. The eastern ironwood forest was looking real promising. If that place counted as a rare construction zone, I might be staring at resource number 3 right now. The entire internet was watching me grind out hardcore industry on a live stream, and somehow it pulled higher viewer counts than primetime television. He recruited 100 farmers in a single click. 6 of everything. The numbers are ticking up so fast I can't even read them. Someone typed, "This isn't even a survival stream anymore. This is a full-blown economics lecture." And I am completely hooked. 10 days ago, I couldn't even afford a decent meal. Today, I'm running an entire powerhouse economy, pumping out 6,000 units of food daily, employing hundreds of workers across multiple fantasy races, and keeping a dwarf busy forging custom gear in my basement. That Tier 2 upgrade was no longer just a distant pipe dream. It was an active countdown, and somewhere out there, my final rare resource was just waiting to be claimed. I could practically smell it. Or maybe that was just copper beard. Dwarves aren't exactly famous for their hygiene. The morning sun was barely peeking out when 8 battered, bleeding soldiers dragged themselves through my east gate, looking like they crawled straight out of hell's dumpster. 8 survivors out of 30. Their captain, Zhao Taiju, was missing an entire arm, just completely gone. Stub tied off crudely with a strip of his own uniform. His face was ghostly white, barely able to stay upright. He tried to salute me and almost collapsed on the spot. I caught him just before he hit the dirt. The undead ironwood forest. It was a massive trap. He choked out between bloody coughs and ragged gasps. They stepped into the forest, and everything seemed fine at first. 5 kilometers in, and the dead woke up. Skeletons buried under every single log, lurking behind every stump, pouring out of the dirt like an endless ocean of bones. Skeleton archers raining down arrows, slick with black rot, melting flesh the second it made contact. Armored skeleton warriors packing superhuman strength. And worst of all, stitching abominations. Monsters, pieced together from rotting corpses and shattered bones, swatting 3 heavy pikemen flying with a single backhand. 22 of my soldiers dead, their bodies beyond recovery. Gone in mere minutes. 10 heavy pikemen, 12 elite crossbowmen wiped out. This iron tough veteran was openly sobbing in front of everyone. 22 brothers, and nothing left of them. My hand was gripping his shoulder so tightly. My veins were bulging. I squeezed my eyes shut, took a breath and snapped them open. "Get them to the medics now." My voice came out dangerously flat and cold. Something inside me had just snapped. Their blood will not go to waste. I spun around to face Lin, 3 Iron String, Copperbeard, and every single officer in earshot. "You all heard that. An undead horde is camping just 15 kilometers east of here. Organized, massive, and they've already slaughtered 22 of ours. They're coming for us next." A heavy, crushing silence settled over the room. Effective immediately, we are at total war. Every resource we have in storage gets funneled into soldiers and weapons. Everything. I smashed the stone tablet like I was punching an enemy. 30 heavy pikemen. 3,000 food. 24 wood, 300 iron, gone. 40 elite crossbowmen. 4,000 food. 32 wood, 400 iron, gone. My resource ledger went from looking comfortably wealthy to absolutely wiped clean in 2 taps. Weeks of careful grinding vanished in seconds. I didn't even flinch. Dead soldiers can't spend savings. Copperbeard, halt all active research. Every forge, every hammer, every dwarf, weapons only. Armor-piercing bolts, now. Give me crossbow parts and make sure they're razor-sharp and bone-crushing. I want mountains of them. Copperbeard gripped his warhammer so hard. His knuckles turned completely white. Dwarf forges burn exclusively for the annihilation of enemies. He roared it like a battle cry, and bolted straight for the workshop. The furnaces erupted within minutes. Lin-Tu and Isla locked down wartime logistics, while Iron String slapped a double-wall defense on the eastern flank. Every single watchtower pivoted east, with patrols sprinting day and night. My peaceful farming simulator had officially been cancelled. The entire town flipped the switch from economy mode to hardcore war. Factory in under an hour. The fields went dead silent. The barracks glowed non-stop, and the blacksmith's hammering never ceased. All across the globe, everyone else was living out their own personal nightmares. America's Green Beret was locked in a brutal fight against venomous, clawed forest freaks moving like shadows. Russia's colonel was literally chopping monsters in half with a giant axe on a frozen riverbank. While screaming Yura, Japan just pulled their third representative, some historical strategy nerd named Takeda Shingen, who was actually competent. He calmly directed his starter militia to drop wild beasts by strategically severing their leg tendons. Instead of trying to look cool, smart, methodical, and lethal, Japan might actually survive this round. Meanwhile, India's guy was hiding in a shed, while his farmers got hunted down by regular wolves. Just ordinary, everyday wolves. Oof, no comment. But none of that mattered to me right now. I stood tall on my eastern wall, rocking the new mountain pattern. Iron armor, cold, heavy, and gleaming, staring out into the horizon, where an army of the dead was massing its forces. Inside a forest of twisted metal trees. 22 names I would never get to say again. The undead weren't some distant future threat anymore. They were here, they were organized, and they had already drawn first blood. I gripped the ramparts hard and made a vow. To the 8 survivors and to the 22 fallen. To every single soul watching across 2 worlds. These bones were about to shatter.